The biggest mistake in my life, after getting married and divorced many times, was giving birth to my daughter. My mother said this while laughing out loud without any sign of remorse. She may have thought it was a funny thing to say, but she probably didn't imagine how much her words would hurt her daughter. Fine. If they're parents like that, I'll cut them off. I was fed up with my mother's bad habits with men and her carefree upbringing, so I ran away from home in the spring of my 15th year. I never thought that 10 years later, that mother would come and apologize to me. What kind of courage did she have to do that? My name is Yuri. I've never had the flu. I'm 38 years old and in perfect health. That's why I don't notice when I'm not feeling well. Shut up. I have a strong immune system. Well, I'm not catching a cold, but I'm suffering from it these days. I should be healthy. Yes. Maybe I'm such a cheerful person now, but I used to be so gloomy. But that's not my fault. I think it was because of my environment, because my real parents divorced when I was young, so I don't even remember what my father looked like. My mother was drunk and complaining that she was abandoned by that man, but in this case, my father was probably right to run away because he was fed up with her promiscuous behavior. My mother was a woman with bad habits with men. Because of that, I called about 8 men my father. Maybe it was even more. In my house, men who I wasn't sure if they were married to my mother came and went as if it was normal, and I would often change partners every 2 months. But my mother introduced all of those men to me as my father, so I didn't know who was my legal father. There must have been some men who were just lovers, like Uchizono's husband, but I recognized all of the men as my father. It wasn't a normal family. I think so too. Anyway, my mother is a woman with bad habits. It's clear from my mother's words and actions that her divorce from my real father was caused by my mother's affair. Even from my daughter's perspective, I can only imagine that she would run away. My mother often took me to a special meeting with a man, and whenever she met a new partner, she was absorbed in it, and didn't seem to care about me. Once, she kicked me out of the house, giving me my pocket money because she wanted to spend time at home with a man. When I came home from school, I would often find my mother in a camisole and my father half naked, clinging to each other. My mother basically prioritized her connections with men over her children, so she never came to any class counseling events. I ate my lunch alone at the sports day, and the other kids gradually started to see me as a child from a strange family, so I couldn't make friends. Well, I often got into trouble because people asked me about my family, so at the time I thought it would be easier not to have friends, but now I think it's sad that a child has to think about such things. But then, in the winter of my first year of junior high school, a terrible thing happened. My mother was going to remarry. Well, it's a line I'd heard many times. By this time, I understood what kind of woman my mother was, so I thought it would end up with another relationship with Uchizono. However, this time, it seems she'll get a proper seat. Plans were made for me to meet my new family at a slightly high-end restaurant, but I was confused by the unusual flow of events. Becoming a family is easy. All you have to do is live together. Not only was my common sense that I had thought that way overturned, but it seems that the new father was the one who asked me to meet him, and just that episode made me a little hopeful that this time, a decent person would become my father. When I actually met him, he was a gentle, intelligent, and kind man. He was very considerate to me, and brought me chopsticks if I didn't know the etiquette of knife and fork, and was a person who paid close attention to his surroundings. His companion, my stepbrother Ken, seems to be attending a famous preparatory school. He is in the student council and seems to be very popular. He is said to have received the so-called blue in soccer, which he is good at, and has received an invitation to go to a famous university. Even as a child, I wondered whether I, who had no common sense and was raised by the man's mother and her mother, should become a family with such people. Apparently, the new father and mother met at a so-called matchmaking party. I was surprised to see my mother in such a place, but I guess she was looking for someone financially stable because it seemed like a pain for her to raise me alone. Needless to say, I was worried about the future of my good-looking father, who chose my terrible mother as his partner without knowing her true nature. Things progressed smoothly from then on, and my mother and I moved out of the apartment we were living in and moved in with my father and my parents. Our standard of living improved visibly, and my father and brother were kind. I was still excited about this dream life. Gradually, my mother started to treat me like a nuisance behind my father's back. If I talked to my brother or father, she would scold me for not talking to them, and she didn't seem to like the idea of me getting along with my brothers in the first place. I should have just ignored what my mother said, but I had grown up doing what my mother told me to do since I was a child, so I didn't think about resisting. I think there was some kind of brainwashing that only works between parents and children. So I did what my mother told me to do and tried not to talk to my brothers. My mother probably wanted me to ignore my father and my brother and be hated by them. It seems that my mother wanted to be the most liked person in the house. It was clear that she was trying to raise her own status by belittling me, just like before she lost the family she had worked so hard to get. And my father and brother seemed to think that I hated them. It was just as my mother saw it. Well, even though it was my mother's orders, it's no wonder since I don't talk to my brothers. We only had a minimum of conversation between them, but I felt very sorry that they were still so kind to me. I asked my mother how long I had to do such a meaningless thing, but she just told me to leave if I had a problem. I realized painfully that this person's new family was more important to him than his daughter who was his blood relative. In fact, my father and brother, especially my brother, were really excellent people with a good reputation in the neighborhood. In the end, he turned down the university he had applied to and went on to the medical school at another famous university, and he is a calm and friendly person, so he is popular in the neighborhood. I have never seen him angry, and he once took an elderly woman who had fallen and injured herself to the hospital, and later invited her to a high-class restaurant, where she was treated very well, as the woman was the president of a large company. My mother must have been very proud of my brother. Whenever people said to her, "He's a great son," my mother would eagerly reply, "Isn't he?" And it seemed to her that taking my handsome brother around tickled her feminine side, so she would take him out shopping all the time. She would buy him clothes and shoes every time they went out. Well, that money was my father's, but my father was a gentle person and didn't stop my mother from doing that. He was never loose with money or soft on my mother. He thought it was good if my step-family could interact well. On the contrary, he was not only considerate of my son, but also of me, telling me to buy something he liked for his daughter. Well, my mother never bought me anything, but my brother even bought me presents out of his own pocket when he went out with my mother. My mother secretly hated my brother and father being nice to me, but she couldn't say anything about what they did. I guess she hated that they would think she was disliked and disliked her. Rather, my mother had a high opinion of them, saying that they were kind to such an ordinary child. The kinder my father and brother were, the more I became the failure I had made in my mother's eyes, and my brother and father changed into the ideal family. I feel that my brother was especially good-looking, a young man with good grades. The way my mother looked at my brother from time to time was not the way she looked at her son. That's why she probably took him out like an accessory. She's a mother without a six. Even though I knew she was such a bad person, my mother was the only one I couldn't handle, so I loved her no matter how terrible a person she was, and I wanted her to like me more. So I helped my mother with the housework from a young age, and for some reason I tried hard to be liked by her. But it seems that no matter how much I tried, my mother didn't understand. Otherwise, she wouldn't have told me to leave, which would have been so rude of her to her daughter who had no ability to support herself. I was about 15 years old. I started thinking that if I graduated from junior high school, I would be able to get a part-time job, and that it might be okay to leave. That year, a problem occurred. My mother missed my important interview with the junior high school before the entrance exam. I argued with my mother that it was too cruel to treat me like that before the important event of my life, the high school entrance exam. Then she said, "Shut up, shut up. If it's like this, I should never have given birth to you." Quote. I didn't expect to hear a proper reply like, "I'm sorry," from my mother, but I also didn't expect her to say the worst thing, "I shouldn't have given birth to you," and I couldn't believe my ears. In my life of repeated divorces and remarriages, the biggest mistake I made was giving birth to you. My mother added, "Just kidding," and laughed as if she had said something clever. It seems like no one even noticed how horrible words he had said to me. It was painful, but no tears came. It seems that people can't cry when it's too painful. My mother was engrossed in watching TV as if nothing had happened. That alone was enough to make me despair. I was naive to think that she would look back at me someday because we were related by blood and she was my mother. That day, I left home with just a few belongings and the pocket money my father gave me. To be honest, I regretted leaving home on impulse. I had thought about leaving home when I turned 16, but I wasn't completely sure what I could do if I left home at 15. I thought that I might be turned away, but I thought I would ask my grandmother, who was estranged from my mother, for help. I took the train to the town where my grandmother lives, and when I asked her where she was, she greeted me without asking me anything. My grandmother said that she had always thought that a day like this would come someday. My grandmother was a single mother who raised my mother, but she couldn't stand my mother's bad habits with men, and she became estranged from her. She said that she was always worried about me, but that there was no way to separate my mother from me because my mother was taking good care of my child on the surface. I'm sure my grandmother didn't want to have any contact with my mother. But she didn't let that happen, and instead contacted my mother, and after going through the proper procedures, she invited me to live at her house. I explained the situation to the school, and although it was far from the school, they said I could commute by train, so I didn't need to worry about my health. In this way, thanks to my grandmother, I was able to live a peaceful life. Since living with my grandmother, every day has been fun. We went for walks together to help my grandmother rehabilitate her leg, which had been injured in an accident a few years ago, and she fed me the country cooking that my grandmother grew up with, and we went shopping and had picnics together on our days off. If you're a child who grew up normally, you might wonder what's so fun about all that, but those are all things I wanted my mother to do when I was little. I don't have such warm memories of my life with my mother. It was normal to always live uncomfortably with my mother and a man I didn't know. A normal life was what I longed for. About 10 years after spending such peaceful days, my mother suddenly appeared when I was 26 years old. My mother suddenly came to my house with tears in her eyes and said as soon as she saw me, "Please, I'll apologize, so please forgive me. I'm sorry, so please forgive me. You two know each other, right?" I didn't understand. My grandmother, who was next to me, looked back and forth between me and my mother, as if she was wondering what was going on. "What's this all of a sudden?" I asked my mother. In fact, my mother began to speak in a small voice. It seems that my mother was kicked out of the house by my brother and his wife, with whom she lived. At that time, the money that my brother's wife gave to her daughter boomeranged back to you. She said that you deserve it. I heard that story and it made sense. Your brother's wife. You know everything that has happened so far. My mother looked at my words. What do you mean? How do you and that toxic wife know each other? My mother's surprised face made my grandmother and I look at each other in confusion and sigh. That's because my sister is a staff member at the day service where my grandmother goes for rehabilitation. My brother often comes to this town to see me, so he sometimes picks up my grandmother from the day service, and the two of them met there. What do you mean? You weren't that close with your brothers, were you? Yes. When I was at home, a lot of things changed after I started living with my grandmother. Well, I told my mother about the past 10 years. It was a while after I started living at my grandmother's house. My brother and father suddenly came to this house. They apologized to me for not realizing what he was doing. To be honest, I don't think they're at fault at all. It was me who did what my mother told me and ignored them, and they don't need to apologize for not realizing what he was doing. There's no point in saying this, but at the end of the day, we're a family without blood ties. I think it's impossible to ask someone to do something about the parent-child relationship between my mother and me, who are blood ties. But the two of them seemed to be truly sorry that they hadn't noticed anything, and they bowed their heads while crying. I also apologized for not speaking to them, and told them honestly that I really wanted to become friends with them. After that, a few times a month, the two of them started visiting my grandmother's house to see me. Sometimes my father came, and sometimes it was just my brother, because they were doing it behind my mother's back. They were trying to fulfill my wish to become friends with the two of them. In this way, my brothers and I continued to walk as a family in a completely new way that even my mother hadn't imagined. My father seemed to be thinking about divorcing my mother, whose true nature had been revealed, but he seemed to choose to endure and continue his married life until I became a working adult and was able to work steadily. He seemed to think that if he abandoned my mother now, she would come to me and cause me trouble. My father seemed to be thinking that he would be my shield until I had a solid foundation for life and was able to protect myself even if my mother attacked me. One night, my brother got married. My sister-in-law, who knew about my eviction and my mother's treatment from our previous relationship through my grandmother, decided to kick my mother out of the house and let her return to this house. My brother and father were both complaining about my mother's relapse into manhunting, so they kicked her out of the house at the right time. My mother, who found out everything, was pale and groaned on the spot. "I didn't know you two were so close." But then, she said that, and grabbed both of my shoulders. Then, when I said that coldly, my grandmother brushed my mother's hand away. "Please. Ask my brothers to let me come back home." If what I'm saying now is true, it's not strange that I'll get divorced. Well, I can't stop the flow of divorce. It's a good opportunity for your father too. That's the last thing I want. You'll do something to be my daughter. There's no way you'll do that. What, you're still acting like a mother after all this? What motherly things have you done for me up until now? There's nothing. You gave birth to me. Then I'll say I was born to you too. My mother was silent after what I said. She is not a very smart person, so she probably couldn't think of a counter-argument. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of helping her, and I don't think of her as a parent. It's too much to call her a parent now after leaving her alone for 10 years. You must have forgotten about me until now. In any case, you can't call someone who forgets their daughter a parent. Go home. I pushed my mother away with all my might and closed the front door. My mother's voice continued to plead with me to open the door for almost an hour, but when I told her I was going to call the police, she seemed scared and left before I knew it. After that, my brother contacted me and told me that my father and mother were officially divorced. When they divorced, my brother and his wife told me not to go near my daughter. Apparently, he told them in a very scary tone, and my mother never showed up to see me. To be honest, I've never seen that kind brother get angry, but my father said that he was uncontrollable when he got angry, so my mother must have been very scared. My brother's wife used to ride around on a motorcycle, wear fashionable clothes with flashy embroidery, and talk nonchalantly. It must have been scary to see the two of them standing side by side, looking so pissed. A little while later, the police contacted me to say that my mother had shoplifted, but I didn't go to pick her up. Apparently she was hoping that her family would come to pick her up by continuing to shoplift. The police asked me to be a guarantor, but I honestly refused. Because I don't think of her as family anymore. I don't know what happened after that, but I heard that she was caught again, so maybe she's back to normal. But I never knew what kind of life my mother was living. It was her own fault that she ended up on that path. Meanwhile, my brother had a child, and I got married, and now I'm a mother of two. My grandmother met our child, and she was very happy that she would never have met Hamako if she had stayed estranged from my mother. If I had continued to spend my time with my mother, I probably would never have wanted to have a family. I didn't have many good memories of my family. Living with my grandmother, learning about the kindness of my brother and father, I began to think that family was a good thing. I am truly grateful to my family for healing my frozen heart. I want to tell my children that family is more about the strength of bonds than blood ties. My name is Saori. I am a full-time housewife who spends her days doing housework and raising children, and before I knew it, I was 45 years old. Today, I would like to talk about the ordeal I went through when I gave birth to my first child 18 years ago. My husband, Makoto, was a classmate from junior high school, and I dated him briefly before taking the high school entrance exam. To be honest, we were just kids, so it was a cute, almost silly relationship. We barely even touched hands. But when I went to high school, our relationship naturally faded away, and it remained a fond memory of my first love. However, when I was 25, we met again at a class reunion held when my homeroom teacher retired, and that's when we started dating again. The fact that neither of us could forget our first loves was the deciding factor. Once we started dating, we found that we were in perfect sync, from our nostalgic memories to our current values, So I think that old friends are just too much to handle. We dated for about half a year and got married. Then, while watching TV, he casually asked me to marry him, and we decided to get married. It was what you might call a smooth ride. Up until that point, everything had gone smoothly. I repeat, that was the end of the smoothest period. The problem arose on the day I went to my husband's parents' house to give my wedding greetings. I was nervous about what was probably the first and last time in my life that I would be greeting the parents of someone important to me. After all, we were about to become a family. I didn't want to make a mistake. However, my husband's family who greeted me were very kind, and I remember feeling very relieved. They took the sushi from the front, and we all sat around the table together. They told me that they were happy that I was a good girl, and I gradually began to relax. Oh, Saori's shoes are nice. My mother-in-law said this as she watched me put them on at the entrance. Really? Thank you. I really like them, and although they are quite worn out, I have had them repaired many times and take good care of them. They were a gift from my mother to celebrate my new job. When I was in junior high and high school, my father took a break, and later his debts were discovered, so our family was in dire straits at the time. Even so, she wanted to celebrate my new job by sending me a pair of Shiny's brand shoes that I wouldn't be ashamed of even as I got older. For me, they are a precious treasure that is engraved with my mother's feelings and our family background. So I think I spoke a little too proudly. Maybe that was wrong. Oh no. Are you using something that old? No, that's not okay, you're young. You need to use trendy things. Huh? Take care of your things. I was raised with that kind of education, but being told to use trendy things was a shock. Now that I think about it, Saori doesn't dye her hair either. You work at the same place as Makoto, right? Shouldn't you dress a little more glamorously within the rules? You're a woman, so you need to dress nicely or your son will be embarrassed. There's probably no malice. She spoke with a smile as if it were common sense. Mom, stop it already. I like Saori just the way she is. My husband said that right away, so my mother-in-law remained silent, wondering if that was true. I felt quite uneasy, but I knew that there were different values, and I didn't want to cause any trouble here, so I smiled and said, I'll be a little more considerate. Thinking back on it now, I think I shouldn't have said that. Even though I was reading the mood, I may have been trying too hard to flatter her. After all, I was young, so my heart wasn't as damaged as it is now. It's completely bald now, but I hope you'll all look at it with a kind eye. A few months later, when my husband and I were starting to talk about the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. As a result, we talked it over and decided to keep the wedding expenses down. I was still young, didn't earn much, didn't have much savings, and wanted to spend the money on our unborn child. My husband was also worried that if we had a fancy wedding, there would be more meetings and things and I would get tired. We were both in agreement, but once again my mother-in-law stuck her nose in. Hey, I won't go if it's a plain wedding. It has to be extravagant after all. Quote. That was the first thing she said when we talked about the wedding plan along with the announcement of my pregnancy. I found out after our wedding greetings that my mother-in-law had started receiving a pension and was spending her days at the pachinko parlor. She seemed to be the least aware of this, and said that she had only heard about it from her father-in-law during our wedding greetings. When she has money, she spends it quickly, so her family is in dire straits. But she keeps losing money at the pachinko parlor. It seems that my father-in-law was angry enough to stop him, and his pachinko drinking seems to have calmed down a bit. However, perhaps this background had an effect. It seems that my mother-in-law naturally became obsessed with flashy things and money. My husband said that his remarks to me during the wedding ceremony probably stemmed from this. And finally, he said that he would not go to a plain wedding. I was torn between thinking that would be a good idea and thinking that the ceremony was not just for me but also for my parents. If it was going to be a wedding, I wanted everyone to be there and be properly blessed. However, my husband said, "What do you mean you won't come if it's plain?" And replied, "If you don't want to come, then you don't have to." My father-in-law, on the other hand, said that he would go, and no one could agree. Wondering what to do, I stopped the conversation, saying that we would go back and discuss it again. In the end, I talked it over with my husband at home, and we decided to make it a little more flashy than the current plan. My husband was quite reluctant, but when I convinced him by telling him that this was a once-in-a-lifetime celebration for his son, he gave in. I was also annoyed by my mother-in-law's stance that she wouldn't go if it was plain, but in the end I decided to accept it since she would come to a slightly more glamorous ceremony. Sometime later, I gave birth to my long-awaited first child. It was a girl, so we named her Ma. It was a whirlwind of events, with wedding greetings, the wedding, and preparations for the birth, but I was so happy and overwhelmed with joy that she was born safely. Then one day, my mother-in-law came to visit me alone. "Kaori, this isn't much," but she said that and handed me a gift envelope. "Thank you. I'm sorry. Is it true that I feel a little bad when she says that to me at a time like this?" For the time being, I carefully put the gift envelope away in a locked drawer. I would secretly open it after the sheet returned. To be honest, I was really happy to receive cash at the time. Even after all that, there were things I already had and expenses for housewarmings. Cash could be used for housewarmings and to buy things I didn't have, so it was a real help. I think there are many people who feel the same way. With such mixed feelings and gratitude, I opened the gift bag and couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Inside were products issued by a supermarket near my parents' house. 10 coupons worth 500 yen. By the way, my house and my parents' house are not close at all. The product rights can only be used at the supermarket chain that issued them. There are no chain stores near my house either. It wasn't about the amount or common sense, but I was surprised that I had received such a maniacal product right. Did they not think about the other person at all? However, it was a gift after all. Perhaps it was because of my Japanese personality, but I felt that I shouldn't complain. After thinking about it for a few days, I decided to call my parents' house to express my gratitude. My father-in-law, who happened to be off work that day, took the call. "Thank you for the gift the other day. I'm sure I'll need it a lot from now on, so it might not be much, but please use it for something." I thought it was certainly not much, but when my children grow up, I'll go shopping at your supermarket with their fathers. It was valid for 3 years, I replied cheerfully. My father-in-law asked me again if it was valid. When I told him that it was a product and had an expiration date, my father-in-law must have wrapped up 150,000 yen, but I think both my father-in-law and I turned pale. Whose wallet did the 150,000 yen disappear into? I had no doubts. Gifu couldn't hide his irritation over the phone. I felt a sense of unease and didn't want to cause any trouble if they argued behind my back, and I looked down on my father-in-law. A little while after hanging up the phone, Shito came to visit again. "Saori, did you check the policy you mentioned the other day?" It was great that it was a deadline, but it was the first time someone had asked me if I had checked the policy, and to be honest, I was taken aback. Oh, yes, thank you." You should have thanked her while looking confused. "I'm glad you're happy," said Shito with a smug look on her face. I thought she wasn't happy at all, but then she asked me what I had bought. First of all, I could understand if it was because I was in the hospital, but I couldn't do anything about the product, so what are you talking about? I can't buy anything with that product right now. I said it on purpose. But I didn't regret it. My mother-in-law's face quickly turned red with anger. I couldn't believe it. It was something we gave her with good intentions. What's with that way of speaking? Are you dissatisfied? It's not that I'm dissatisfied, but I heard from my father that he gave your mother 150,000 yen. What happened to it? I asked her matter-of-factly. I was simply worried about where the money had gone. I had a bad feeling about it. I think your father did too. We just used it for a little fun. It was our money to begin with, so it doesn't matter. What I gave you was the rest. We turned it into products because it wouldn't be thick if it was just bills. She started acting up as if I had said something terrible. That's just plain weird. What do you mean it wouldn't be thick? You mean pachinko? When I asked her that, my mother-in-law's face turned pale from red to blue and she just said, "Shut up," and left the hospital room. Oh, this is annoying. That's all there is to it. Why did this happen when my body is still in pain from giving birth? But now that I knew it was used for pachinko, I thought I should let my father know. When I contacted my husband, they both said it would be better if we all talked together and came to the hospital room. Is Mom still playing pachinko? What's going on, Dad? My husband was clearly irritated as he roughly counted the merchandise rights. He had been angry about the pachinko money since I contacted him, so he was probably taking out his feelings on the merchandise. He wouldn't listen to me if I told him normally. I guess I have no choice but to use my own hands. Saying this, my father-in-law took out divorce papers from his bag. It seems he had been thinking about declaring divorce for a long time. However, his plan was to prepare the divorce papers first and threaten her. When my husband heard this, he went along with the plan. He said with a look of satisfaction that he would cut off all ties with her. If my husband cut off all ties with her, my mother-in-law would not be able to see her grandchild who was visiting her. Despite sending her the merchandise rights for no apparent reason, my mother-in-law was very affectionate towards their first grandchild. The plan was to start at my parents' house after I retired. My husband and I visited them unexpectedly without any prior notice. And when she sees her daughter, she looks shocked. Of course. She yelled at me to be quiet and went home. That's a harsh punishment. Despite the mother-in-law's reaction, my father-in-law welcomed us in with a smile. The reason I've gathered everyone here today is because I have something to tell you. My father-in-law cut his lips in a stern tone. I wonder if he's guessing. The mother-in-law's voices are rising, asking what I'm talking about. Where did you get the principles I entrusted to you? She remains silent when my father-in-law asks. Was it my mistake to entrust them to you? I trusted you too much. I can't believe you're still playing pachinko. What's wrong? No, it's not. What's wrong? She lost nearly 150,000 yen playing pachinko and gave the rest to Sao-san. My father-in-law glares at my mother-in-law, who turns pale. And she's even more cunning, making it a product right just to make it seem more substantial. She's so ignorant. Gifu's words were so sudden that his mother-in-law was on the verge of tears. Gifu's mother-in-law apologized quietly, but his father-in-law wouldn't listen. All bank accounts in my name have been stopped. Even if I apologize, I can't use the money anymore. If you've reflected on your actions and say you'll never go to pachinko again, sign this and show your determination. I won't submit this unless you go to pachinko. The divorce papers he handed over already had his father-in-law's name on them. This is a document of future restrictions that will result in a divorce. It has a stronger impact than just making him promise normally. It was a strategy he came up with because he believed that Gifu didn't want a divorce. If he said he wanted to go to pachinko even if it meant getting a divorce, then this time it would really be the end. Gifu spoke his mind while shedding tears. Each of his words was irrational, but that wasn't his intention. He seemed to be trying to convey that he couldn't resist when he had money in front of him. His father-in-law probably realized that his mother-in-law was almost entirely addicted to pachinko. At first glance, it was a stern warning to Shito who had spent all the money, but I thought this was the greatest love of Gifu. I think my husband went along with this plan because he felt the same way. However, once a pachinko addiction and old-fashioned habits have become ingrained in one's body, it is not easy to overcome. Unless you corner Shito without letting her know about these feelings, you cannot expect any results. With the divorce papers in front of him, Shito's mother-in-law sat down on the spot, but she would not sign. She kept saying to herself that she would not stop playing pachinko either. If you do not stop playing pachinko, I will cut off all ties with mom. My husband pressed her furiously. That's how it is, Gifu. The mother-in-law remained silent for a while, then nodded weakly while looking down. There were still doubts about whether this plan would be effective. No matter how much he reflected on it here, the divorce all depended on his patience. This was the real yard. That's how I felt. 18 years have passed since then. In the end, Shito never stopped playing pachinko. Less than 2 months after that operation, it was discovered that she had secretly taken money out of her wallet in Gifu and gone to the pachinko parlor. Her father-in-law handed her divorce papers, saying that she was guilty of the crime of marriage and that she should not step on our child, and he and her husband were cut off from each other. Shito is apparently treated as a nuisance by her own relatives and is now lost in the countryside. However, her gambling addiction continues, and she is said to be continuing to gamble while working part-time as a pachinko cleaner. A neighbor told me that he saw her in a pathetic state, picking up pachinko balls that had fallen on the floor of the store and putting them in her pocket. Well, it's her own fault. There's nothing we can do about it. Our daughter has already reached the age of 4. She had been told stories about her mother-in-law and money ghost in Gifu, as if they were in a fairy tale, so she has grown up to be a complete greedy person. Every day, she shakes the large bottle in which she saves her small change and grins. It seems that she will not become senile due to her awakening genes, but she has a rather nasty-faced daughter. However, when she goes on a date, she does splurge and buy formal clothes, so I guess she balances things out. She's a good daughter. Having lost my father at an early age, a warm home was a dream for me. Money is important, but family is even more important. I think what my mother-in-law lacked in the end was the heart to care for her family. That's why she couldn't be a family anymore. I want everyone to reconsider how they love their own family. I think that's the secret to a family that can be happy forever. Tomorrow, we're going on a family trip with my father-in-law. We're all going to have a blast. I'm off. I'll make it clear while I'm at it. I don't want to take care of a frail old lady in the future, so can you cut ties with me now? The eldest son's wife says that she doesn't want to bother with old language at all. Please don't contact me at all except for President Khan. From the perspective of a wife, such a selfish poor mother-in-law is a huge piece of garbage. I'd be in trouble if she turned away from me while I'm alive. Well, please make sure you have life insurance. How dare you say that to your mother-in-law's face? I'll tear that greedy horn from you. Wait and wash your head. I'm Yuko. I'm 65 years old and I became a pensioner this year. I was actually planning to start receiving my pension early at 60, but I was told that I would lose out if I didn't wait a certain amount of time, so I reluctantly agreed and decided to start receiving it this year. I married my husband, who was my high school classmate, when I was just before I turned 30, and we were blessed with one daughter. My eldest son, Kunihiko, is 35 this year. My daughter Mari is turning 30. With a 5-year age difference, both of them grow up like an only child. Yoshi, who lived nearby, especially doted on his first grandchild Kunihiko, and my son grew up to be as selfish as a king. Listen to me. Mom bought Kunihiko another toy. I was venting my frustrations to my husband about my mother-in-law who buys everything for him right away. What's wrong? Do you have a problem? It's one thing for Christmas or birthdays, but she only lets him eat the stars on chocolate. Yeah. If you have a problem, say it yourself. I'm tired from work every day. I'm not interested in raising children. I was exhausted by the daily fights, and by the time Mari was born, our relationship had become completely cold. In addition, I was so tired of my parents-in-law who were still so busy with Kunihiko that I decided to take the plunge and leave home. You're free to leave, but you're not patient enough. I won't give you a single yen in child support. My husband and parents-in-law were hurling abuse at me. Wanting to escape from that environment as soon as possible, I returned to my parents' house with my children. To make a living, I left my children in nursery school and started working part-time. My daughter was weak and easily got a fever. I prioritized Mari, so I couldn't get a full-time job and I continued to work part-time. Thanks to the support of my parents, I was able to raise my children alone, but I have already destroyed them. I was busy with my daily life and had little savings, and now my only income is the national basic pension of 65,000 yen a month. One day, while I was living such an anxious life, my eldest son, Kunihiko, suddenly came to the house. Is there someone I want to introduce to you? Oh, if you're coming, please let me know. Even though I usually clean diligently, the refrigerator is empty. I only go shopping on supermarket sale days, so I was flustered by the sudden visit of my son with his girlfriend. Emily, it's an old and small house, but please come in. Kunihiko is as foul-mouthed as ever. Well, I wonder if he said that if the cat is left, it's Emily. It would be a hassle if someone said that to me. Here you go. I gave her the slippers of my daughter who comes to visit occasionally. It's true. They're small and old. I said that because I'm lazy. I've always been immune to saying what I think, but this was the first time someone else said that to me. My thoughts stopped for a moment. Why, that's right. They were put up by my parents 45 years ago, so they must be old. I gave a fake smile and led the two of them to the room. I'll make some tea. Would you prefer coffee? Jasmine tea would be good. Of course not. I was speechless at her lack of tact, as she spoke so decisively. More importantly, I'm hungry. Can you get me something? Kunihiko said that and sat down on the sofa. He was thin in his student days, but maybe he was middle-aged. He had a feeling that he was dressed a whole lot better than when he came here 6 months ago. I like eel. Amelia, what do you want to eat? Can I have eel too? Wait a minute. I was annoyed by the two of them going ahead with the conversation, and my hand stopped putting tea in the cupboard to rescue me. My son, who I haven't seen in a long time, came to my parents' house with his girlfriend for the first time in 6 months. I really want to treat him, but I don't have the money to spend nearly 10,000 yen on lunch. I decided to order only 2 servings of eel, since there's no point in splurging. Mom, you don't want to eat eel? I don't know where eel is, but I'll make a fake don, so it's okay. Yes. I don't remember Kunihiko. I cut up some eel, grill it, and eat it with eel sauce. You were little then, right? I remembered that I had some eel in the fridge that was close to its expiration date, so I went to Kunihiko. What's that? I'm poor, seriously. She clapped her hands in amusement. The mood was gone. I'm going home now. Oh, we're getting married. Was he angry because she laughed at him? Or did he not like my story? Kunihiko said this in a heart-pounding voice and left the house. I felt bad. She spat out the same thing and left, chasing after Kunihiko. It was my fault for making him feel so embarrassed. A month after Kunihiko came to our house, I spoke to my daughter Mari in a friendly manner. That's not true, it's just your brother who is being shameless. I felt relieved when Mari spoke so rudely. What we should have is a daughter. My daughter must have been frustrated by her brother Kunihiko's selfishness, who was spoiled by his righteous conscience until the end of the marriage, but she grew up to be a considerate child. I'm sorry, Marie. Thank you. I was so grateful, so I quietly thanked my daughter. That's good. What was your brother's girlfriend like? I wanted to meet her too. She was a very beautiful girl. She's too good for Kunihiko. She seemed about 10 years younger. It was the worst first impression, but I couldn't tell my daughter the truth. In the first place, I wasn't told anything about her age or where they met. That's right. Knowing my brother, who is so obvious, I'm sure he'll have a flashy wedding. I guess the invitations will arrive soon. I'm looking forward to it. You see, actually, I'm also thinking of marrying someone. Yes. Can I bring her over next week? Oh, so that's what it was. My daughter, who graduated from nursing school after graduating from high school and is busy working as a nurse, came to visit me because she had something to report. My daughter is 30 this year. I was more happy than my son that we had a good relationship. Mom, I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of person she is next week. The next day, I went to the hair salon for the first time in 3 months to get my hair in line with the headlines. I don't want to embarrass my daughter. Even if it was on the surface, I felt cheerful when I saw my neatly trimmed bangs. However, something came in that made my heart gloomy after dressing up for the first time in a while. What is this? An envelope addressed to me in the mailbox. I don't recognize the messy scribbled handwriting. I immediately went to the kitchen and opened the envelope with kitchen scissors. Looking closely, the name of the hotel biller was not for me, but for my son Kunihiko, and it seemed to be an invoice for the wedding and the fatigue garden. I had been thinking that the wedding ceremony would be held soon, but when I looked at the invoice again through the mirror, I saw that the ceremony had been held 2 weeks ago and the transfer details were written on it. The ceremony has already been held. Why should they charge me? I called Kunihiko's smartphone in a panic. He was at work, so I couldn't get through and there was no answering machine. I called Kunihiko's apartment landline to leave a message. Hello. I thought he would call soon. A faint woman's voice. I immediately knew it was Emily. It was a message saying that the invoice had arrived. The deadline is approaching, so please transfer the money quickly. What? What do you mean? So they've already held the ceremony and are living together? Is Kunihiko saying that I should pay the expenses? She was unilaterally asking me to transfer the money without any preamble, so I asked Yagihaya. Haven't you heard me? I haven't heard you at all. Kunihiko is at the convenience store to buy cigarettes now, so I'll explain it to you. I couldn't keep up with her businesslike way of speaking. She probably wasn't a smoker to begin with, going to a convenience store to buy cigarettes in the middle of the day on a weekday. It's my cigarettes. Perhaps my doubts were conveyed over the phone, as she continued to speak with a laugh. Kunihiko said that he had no choice but to pay the down payment for the wedding, but that he would make his mother pay the remaining amount. No, that's not what I want to ask. Why didn't you invite me, his parent, to the wedding? That's why I went to greet him. She said, looking annoyed at my confusion. Kunihiko told me that he really wanted me to marry him. I'm not bragging, but I'm quite popular. He married me, who is 10 years younger than me, so I want him to pay a reasonable price. I'm sorry. I don't understand what you're talking about. Is this why old people are so okay? Shitomi are annoying. If you ask him, he says he's just living on a pension. The house he lives in is small and old, he doesn't seem to have any assets, and his existence itself is a nuisance. Is it true that food grudges are terrible? I wonder if she's being treated so badly because she didn't feed the beast that day. I was completely confused by her behavior as she steamed. What is Kunihiko saying? He'll be back soon, right? I feel the same way. It's no use calling later. I'll block your calls from now on. How mean, yes. I'll make it clear to you while I'm at it. I'd like you to cut me off from him now, because I'd like you to leave me alone for the rest of my life. Oh, I see. I'll give you 100 steps and accept President Khan's calls, but please don't do anything else. There is nothing more useless than the habits of a poor person. I'd be in trouble if I was turned away from money while I was alive. Well, I wonder if there'll be something good in the afterlife. Make sure you have life insurance. If you think I'm poor, don't send me any bills. You have savings of about 2 million yen, right? I married your son, who has no redeeming features, so please pay me. She was angry and rang the phone saying not to contact me about the wedding. I was so pathetic that it was like a movie or a TV drama that I collapsed into bed that day. Mom, is Mom there? After 3 days of living a stunned and practical life, I woke up to the sound of someone knocking on the tower at the entrance. I remembered that it was the day my daughter Mari was bringing her fiancé, and I slowly woke up my body, which had become heavy like lead. I was worried because you didn't answer. What's wrong? Is something wrong? It's okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't fall asleep in the middle of the night and fell asleep again. After all, a daughter is something you should have. I was planning to be very good, but Mari was concerned about my pale face and patted my back. I was touched by my daughter's kindness and tears flowed from my eyes, and I told her that Kunihiko had already had a wedding. The bill was sent, and the eldest son's wife declared that she was cut off from me. What is that brother thinking? Where is the bill? Mari also got angry and said that she had not heard from Kunihiko at all, and asked him to show her the bill. What, you have 2 million yen? That's right. I'm wondering if it's right for a parent to ignore him just because he wasn't invited to the wedding. That's right. It's easy to refuse if it's debts my son has gambled. I'm wondering if I should pay it because it's the cost of my son's funeral. As Emily said, I have that much savings. It's not impossible to pay. But if I pay it, I feel like I'll really be cutting ties with him, and I'm sad. Kunihiko was spoiled by his grandmother. Maybe because he heard me say bad things about him when I tried to stop him, he doesn't even think of me as a parent. His rebellious phase in his 4th year of puberty was uncontrollable. If I didn't buy him what he wanted, he'd get angry and call me an old hag. I took it as his last selfish request and prepared the bank book on top of the bill. Mom, you don't need to pay this. I'll take care of it. Whether she knew my feelings or not, Mari took the envelope I handed him from my hand and put it in her handbag. It seemed like she thought I would pay it if I had it in my hand. Honestly, I was relieved by my daughter's decision. Finally noticing the presence of Mary's boyfriend, who had been watching over my interactions with Mari, I bowed deeply. Where did I go wrong in raising my child? I wondered if my feelings for my husband and my mother, who had not been able to say what I wanted to say, had been directed at Kunihiko. It was my wife, Emily, who had declared the end of the relationship, not Kunihiko. I had called my son several times since then, wanting to know his true feelings, but he had rejected my calls. I realized how serious they were when I found out that he had also canceled his landline. My son was already out of touch with me. I never thought that a wife would make my relationship with my son worse. Remembering the words of Mari and her fiancé who had proposed that we live together, I headed to Kunihiko's apartment with my mind turned off. However, my son and his wife were no longer living there. I realized that the bond between parent and child had really been severed. A week later, Kunihiko and his wife came to my house with a big look on their faces. They must have received the bill. Why won't they pay it? I was frightened by the sound of Kunihiko's footsteps as he stomped down the hallway without even coughing up a slip. I told you I would pay. I'm not scheming. I got a call from the hotel. She was a different person from when I first met her, uttering rude words one after another. Her no eyebrows, upturned eyes and crooked mouth showed her poor upbringing. I never said I would pay. She crossed her legs when I said it with a resigned attitude. If you don't pay, I'll be in trouble, Mom. I quit my job last month and I'm unemployed. I wonder if he'll cry after threatening. Kunihiko's way of asking for money hasn't changed since he was a child. He looked at Kunihiko, who hadn't grown up at all, and became serious. There's a wedding ceremony, right? You can pay with that. I used all of that. The apartment I lived in was small. Emily said she wanted to move to a bigger place, so I used it for that. She's still a girl with no planning skills. If that's the case, she shouldn't quit her job. I felt bad about scolding her in front of her wife, who was turning 35, but she had a family. I was shocked at her lack of responsibility. That's why I'd be in trouble if you didn't pay. I understand. I'll withdraw the money from the bank soon, so please tell me your new address. I'll deliver it to you directly. It's a matter of time before I transfer the money. I wanted her to feel the weight and gratitude of the money, so I asked for her new address, but when Kunihiko went to the bathroom, Emily showed her true colors. There's no way I'd tell her. It would be a nuisance if she came to my house. This is what it means to be shocked and speechless. But I guess I've become immune to her, and I've become surprisingly strong. If that's the case, I can't give you the money forever. I knew I would step up my efforts and become more open. I'll write down my new address and new contact information. However, it seems that I have to transfer 2 million yen to the hotel's designated account. So please send me the extension money as well, she said, lowering her tone a little, and then continued, backquote, I'll cut you off when that's done. That's good. I don't know if you have any problems. It's your mother who is in trouble. An old man who lives on a pension of only 65,000 yen a month is a burden. I'm still going on about this daughter-in-law. No, I'm angry that I have to admit that she's my daughter-in-law. If I think that I can end my relationship with her for just 2 million yen, it would be more comforting to do that. A month later, my daughter Mari, who was getting married, sent a wedding invitation to Kunihiko's new address, but it was returned as an unknown address. She said that she couldn't reach him when she called the phone number he gave her. When she visited the address written on the note, she found a completely unfamiliar resident. That means Emily gave a false address, right? Are you serious about cutting off all ties with her? Mari made a gesture of giving up and sighed deeply. I've already lost all love for Kunihiko Fuku. I'll give up on him as if he doesn't exist. That's why I want you to live with us, Mom. I guess the best thing you should have is a daughter. I only half listened to his proposal about living together, but Mari shook my hand with all her heart. I don't need to protect this land that I've been trying to preserve for my eldest son and his wife to inherit. I've had enough of the way they've treated me, and I've made up my mind to let it go. 6 months later. After Mari and her husband's wedding, we moved in and started living together. I heard a familiar voice behind me as I returned home. How dare you deceive me? My son and his wife glared at me. Kunihiko, and even Emily, I told you that we have nothing to do with the marriage. I wonder. Emily said that she saw my mother in the area, so I followed her. I never thought she lived right in front of our apartment. It was Kunihiko who cut his lip in excitement. I thought she was working as a cleaner, but she lived in such a high-class tower apartment. Where did you get that kind of money? Emily came to me, her voice on the edge of her seat. I have no obligation to answer to people who have cut me off. More importantly, please don't say such nasty things in a place like this. I felt pity for my son, who was wearing wooden training wear with rice grains on it. If someone saw such a scene, my daughter and her husband, who are residents, would be upset, so I told them to talk in the room and press the elevator button. How far will this elevator go? Is this really the last meeting? Kunihiko, who has had cross-street phobia since childhood, makes a pathetic noise. That's right. The view from the living room is very nice. Come on in. After making sure the elevator door opened, I invited the two into the room. I was amazed that the two of them roughly took off their matching cheap sandals and went up barefoot. I wonder how amazing their lives are. Emily, is Jasmine T okay? Is there such a thing? She is still as rude as ever, walking down the hallway of the substitute seat, leaving footprints. Yes, there is. You two haven't had lunch yet, right? Is Unagi okay? Hee, why? Why do you say that? But you like Kunihiko, right? That's not what I want to say. How can you have enough money to live in a high-rise apartment? Kunihiko doesn't even try to hide his surprise, hesitating to sit on the sofa by the river. That sofa costs 500,000 yen. If you sit on it, I'm sorry, but please remove the grains of rice from your clothes first. Oh, by the way, answer my question. Did you win the lottery? Did you buy this apartment with the money from selling the land and house? Tell me. If you don't answer, it means you've been pretending to be poor and deceiving us. Pretending to be poor is an infringement. I've cut ties with you guys, so I don't think you have any obligation to answer. I was so happy that my hands trembled as I poured jasmine tea. We agreed that I would cut the yen if I scolded you for 2 million yen. Hey Miri, I told you that I'm a useless person. I approached her as she was picking grains of rice off Kunihiko's clothes. Yes. Oh, that's fine, but that's because my mother was a poor pensioner. Why are you so quick to assume that? Just like you said, Kunihiko was also in the life insurance with the recipient. Seriously? Yes. It's unclear whether he was happy to be able to sit down after picking off the last grain of rice from his clothes, or whether he was reacting to the word recipient, but Kunihiko jumped up in joy. But he couldn't put it down. I've already canceled the life insurance that we've been taking out all this time to make ends meet. I'm sorry, but I'm no longer a parent or child, so I canceled it. I paid 2 million yen with that money. You're a great man. Kunihiko slumped down on the spot. As I looked away, Emily pushed out her belly as if to say that it was her last trump card. Mom, I'm carrying a baby in my belly. Even if you hate us because we're cut off, grandchildren are cute, right? Please give me money for this child. Please pay in advance for the birth celebration. Kunihiko's face lit up with joy, and he began to stroke her belly. I've never heard of paying in advance for a birthday gift. If you're so short of money, you should find a job quickly. Is that so? Congratulations. Of course it's nice to have a grandchild. But if you cut ties with him, you don't need a gift money. She cried out a voiceless groan and collapsed to the floor. At that moment, her daughter Mari came home and called out to her eldest son and his wife. It's been a while, big brother. I'm pregnant too. We're going to be classmates. Mari, are you married? Yes. I sent an invitation but it didn't arrive at the address you gave me. Why didn't you call me? Of course I did, but I couldn't get through. I asked for the new address, but someone else was living there. It seems that Kunihiko only found out at this time that Emily had done the declaration of estrangement and kept the new address secret, and suddenly they started fighting because they were hungry. If you're going to fight, do it outside. He's about to wake up. My husband is a doctor. He's just finished his night shift. Unlike my unemployed brother, I work for others. It's annoying. The eldest son and his wife, who I knew, suddenly stopped fighting when they heard that Mary's husband was a doctor. Oh, he's a doctor. That's amazing. I see. If my mother can't do it, I can rely on Mary's husband. From my point of view, he's my brother-in-law. That's right. It's great to have a relative with a will. The two who were fighting each other are holding hands and rejoicing. How dare you say that? The speed of switching at times like this hasn't changed since we were children. I decided to execute the scenario I had prepared. Kunihiko, you're really a hopeless kid. There's a property that I was planning to let you inherit. Seriously. You did it, Emily. This might make things a little easier for us. Kunihiko was so happy that he almost jumped up and hugged Emily. But since you've slammed your mother into an estrangement, you might not be able to inherit it. Mari smiled meaningfully. It's over. The estrangement is over. Emily, you're good. Of course. I was crazy. I'm sorry, Mom. The two greedy people prostrated themselves before me. Well then, I'm going to get my adulthood right away. I'll do all the paperwork, so will you leave it to me? I'll leave it to you. I'll sign it or whatever right away. Kunihiko and Emily go wild when they find out that they can inherit something. This is what happens when you have golden hair. By the way, what is that property? Kunihiko asked with shining eyes. It's a villa. It's fishy that you kept such a property a secret until now. But if the villa becomes mine, I'm not going to throw away my life. Right, Emily? Mom has such wealth. You can't tell a person by their appearance. It's impossible to cut them off. Even after all this, Emily is still talking nonsense. Well, whatever. It's time to keep talking. After all the inheritance procedures were completed, Kunihiko and Emily came to the house after a while. The faces of the two people on the monitor are like the actions of a demon. I thought you would come soon. I looked at Mari, who was at home on my day off. Don't mess with me. What are you talking about? Just let me in. How can I let you in? I can't stand it if you soil my beautiful floor again. You've tricked me. That property I inherited is the worst. It's in the countryside and the grass is so bad that the agent said it's impossible. Also, the hut nearby is full of black-painted triumphant warriors and people in combat uniforms are wandering around. And next door is a fine building, but isn't it a plot for some unknown religious group? I could hear the two of them groaning through the intercom. Oh, is that so? Now that I think about it, the town hall has requested that we clean up the premises and take measures to prevent fires. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? I'm sorry, Mom only found out recently. The property that Kunihiko inherited was owned by a distant relative I've never met. I was informed that I had the right to inherit it, and I was about to take the procedure for the inheritance law to be abandoned, but I remembered the Zenihiba Kunihiko couple and thought I would let them inherit it. Seriously? We don't need that. We don't want to pay inheritance tax or property tax on that. Kunihiko and Emily's faces turned red and blue in frustration, and Mari and I laughed out loud. The procedures are done, so please take care of it. It's really helpful that Kunihiko inherited it. Mari gave me a thumbs up and said, "Serves you right." I was also pleased that I was able to push the bad news onto my son and his wife. Big brother, my husband is about to wake up. Mari cuts off the monitor. I was ranting until the end, but I don't care anymore. 6 months later, Kunihiko and his wife sent this picture of their newborn to my smartphone without any notice. They couldn't pay the property tax, so they were probably trying to get money from me by using their grandchild as a shield. Mom is cute, isn't she? You want to hold your grandchild, don't you? Of course, it was my first grandchild, so I wanted to hold it, but Mary's child will be born in a few months. There should be no difference in affection between grandchildren. I know that better than anyone. I thought it would be better to see how Kunihiko and Emily raised him with lots of love before that, but Emily seemed to have taken the child back to her parents' house, blaming Kunihiko for not being able to eat. It would be best to separate and cool your head. It's your own fault. And Mari had a child. Now I live with Mari and her husband watching their child up close. Babies are unconditionally cute. I think I'll put him in nursery school after 3 and start working. Mari said, gazing lovingly at Chimigo. That's fine. Mom will take care of him. I appreciate the sentiment, but, well, it's our child. That's right. Baba is Baba after all. I'm looking forward to seeing my grandchild grow up, but I shouldn't make it my purpose in life. From now on, we'll live to 100 years old. I'm thinking of acquiring more knowledge about money. Right. Mom. Actually, you can get 80,000 yen from the age of 70 with a sleeping personal pension. I was surprised. Right. My mother, who found the public pension inconvenient, enrolled me in a lump sum payment plan that was popular during the bubble economy. Having realized the importance of money and the appeal of quitting one's job, I decided to start studying to become a financial planner. Isn't it good to study for your whole life? My daughter Mari smiles. Money is of course a protection, but I think knowledge about money is what protects you. Well, I'm going for a walk today. I'm also making sure to keep my stamina up to stay healthy. I need to be able to celebrate my grandchildren's coming-of-age ceremonies, and then I need to make more money.
私は春美。小さな会社で OL をしながら主婦をこなす32歳だ。夫の大輔とは共通の友人を通じて出会い、結婚して3年が経った。新婚時のような初々しさやときめきはないけれど、二人で過ごす分には特にストレスもなく平和に過ごしている。二人で過ごす分には、ね。春美さん、この味噌汁は出汁が効いてないわ。ちゃんと昆布と鰹節で取ったの？すみません。玄関掃除もトイレ掃除も中途半端だったし、お砂糖が知れるわね。聞いているの？はい。ゴールデンウィークに当然のように義実家に連れて行かれた私は、姑の召使いのようにこき使われた上、ダメ出しを食らう。結婚してからというもの、少しまとまった休みがあるたびに義実家に連行され、こうやって家事を押し付けられる。そして、荒探しをされてはネチネチ文句を言われた。義父も夫も新聞やスマホばかり見て、姑の態度には空気のように知らんぷりだ。それでも夫は帰りの車の中で、ごめんな。母さん昔から口うるさくてさ。でも、春美が行くと生き生きしてるから内心嬉しいんだと思うよ。とフォローしてくれるのだが、どこかピントがずれている。姑が生き生きしてるのはビビる相手がいてこそだろう。 とはいえ、周りの友人も嫁姑問題を抱えていることが多かったから、こんなものかと諦めていた。私が我慢すれば丸く収まるはずだ。そんな時、夫の兄である陽介さんが結婚した。この義兄は、夫と比べると物静かな人だ。義実家で遭遇しても挨拶を交わす程度で、ほとんど話したことはなかった。そんな義兄の奥さんは、なんと一回り近く年下で光さんという。今時の可愛らしい人で、義兄とは意外な組み合わせに感じた。姑は、さすが陽介、若い嫁を捕まえるなんて、と大興奮していたけれど。今回は義兄夫婦がいる初めての正月だ。二人は年末まで仕事があるということで元旦に来るらしい。そんなことで大晦日から義実家に滞在している私は気合の入った姑にいつも以上にこき使われるというわけだ。はるみさん、まだ掃除をしているの？そんなにトロトロしていると年が明けちゃうわよ。さっさと年越しそばの準備をして。はい。ああ、明日が待ち遠しいわ。若いお嫁さんだもの。私がしっかり育ててあげないと。鼻息の荒い姑を横目に、こっそりため息をつく。明日は義兄嫁をできる限りフォローしてあげよう。嫁同士ということに、喜びよりも同情を感じながら、バケツの冷たい水で雑巾を絞った。次の日の昼前、義兄夫婦がやってきた。義兄の嫁は、見た目は派手だけど、挨拶も動作も丁寧で私は好感が持てた。でも姑は、嫁いびりの材料を探すことに夢中のようだった。最初が肝心ということだろう。ほら、はるみさん、さっさとお茶を出して。おせちの準備。はい。ちょっと、あなたもよ、ひかりさん。え？義兄と一緒に居間へ向かおうとした彼女が丸い目をパチクリさせる。嫁の居場所は台所に決まっているでしょ？おい、母さん。陽介は座ってなさい。ほら、荷物は玄関に置いて。はあ。目をギラギラさせた姑は彼女を台所に連れてきた。私にしっかり教えてあげなさいと指示を出すと満足そうに居間に戻っていった。唖然としている彼女に声をかける。来たばっかりなのにね。ここの嫁はすぐにおもてなしの準備をしないといけないの。そこに急須があるから湯飲みはここ。台所の説明をする私を見て彼女はさらにポカンとしている。はるみさんすごいですね。なんで他人の家の食器の場所がわかるんですか？なぜって、私が来た時はここの家事は全部私がやってるから、おおよそわかっているの。嫁のご飯はみんなが食べ終わってから箸をつけるのよ。それまでは配膳だけに集中して。よろしくね。義実家の決まりごとに驚きすぎたのか、彼女が突然大きな声を出した。近くにいた私の耳はキーンとしたし、居間でくつろいでいた姑も驚いて飛んできた。ちょっと何事よ。お母さん。いやー、びっくりしました。家に着いて早々、嫁いびりの始まりですか？は？興奮して詰め寄る彼女に、姑は少したじろいだ。嫁いびりですよ。嫁だけ仕事をさせて、食卓を囲ませないなんて。すごい！昔のドラマみたい！嫁いびりする姑なんて、本当に実在してたんですね。絶滅危惧種として保存しなきゃ。ちょっと？お母さん、嫁いびりはこの家の伝統ですか？姑としての血が騒ぎましたか？可愛い息子を奪っていった嫁が憎いんですよね、きっと。何言ってるのよ。嫁いびりじゃなくて教育よ。姑が口元を引きつらせている。はは、嫁に家事を押し付けてご飯を食べさせないこと。これを教育だと？お姉さんどう思いますか？いきなり話を振られ戸惑う私。 彼女はまるでどこかの探偵のようにこめかみを指で続きながら台所を歩き回っている。教育というからには文科省が推奨してるんですか？学校で嫁はご飯を最後に食べなさいと教えてるんですか？いやー、聞いたことないなー。そうね。彼女の勢いに押され、私が曖昧な返事を返すと、彼女はニヤッと笑って姑に向き直った。お母さん、嫁いびりの伝統を後世に残そうとする。そんな自分を素敵な淑女だと思っちゃってる感じですか？は？姑はもう頭が混乱している。どうですかね。本当にこれが地域の伝統なのか、ご近所さんに聞いてみましょう。早速、お隣に行ってきます。もういいわよ。おせちの準備をしたら、あなたたちもさっさと座りなさい。一方的にまくし立てる彼女の理論に、姑は圧倒されていた。やったー！さ、はるみさん、さっさと済ませて一緒に食べましょう。ええ。探偵モードを解除してニコニコ楽しそうに笑う彼女を姑がものすごい目で睨んでいた。不思議な論理で姑を言いまかした彼女に私も押され、なんだか足元がふわふわした。彼女のあの勢いは本当にお隣に聞きに行くと思わせる迫力があった。しかしこれは彼女と姑の戦いの始まりに過ぎなかった。姑は先制されても逆転するまでやめない執念深い人間だということを私は知っていた。私たちが一緒の食卓に着いたとき、夫と義父は驚いたような顔をした。それでも一言も突っ込まないところが空気のような彼ららしい。義兄はほっとしたように彼女を自分の隣に座らせた。姑は先ほどの痛手から立ち直り、嫁たちのあらを探そうと目をギョロギョロさせている。そんな状況でも義兄の嫁はマイペース。おいしい。これお姉さんが作ったんですか？そうよ。私、黒豆と田作りが大好きなんです。正月だけじゃなくて一年中食べたいくらい。年下らしい可愛らしさに少し癒される。義実家で笑うなんていつ以来のことだろう。そんな時、皿に醤油を入れようとした彼女が首をかしげる。あ、お醤油切れちゃった。俺が台所から取ってくるよ。ありがとう、洋介さん。義兄の当然のような態度に笑顔で感謝を伝える彼女。しかし、そこで姑が待ってましたとばかりに口を挟んだ。ちょっと、旦那様を使うなんて、お里が知れるわね。は？姑の物言いに義兄が眉をしかめた。しかし、ここでカウンターパンチを食らわせたのも彼女だった。出たー！新たなキーワード、お里が知れる、いただきましたまたもや彼女に反撃された姑が小さく悲鳴を上げた。初めて聞きました。お里が知れる。本当にこんな言葉を使う人間が21世紀に実在していたんですね。いかがですか？コメンテーターの洋介さん。今度は実況リポーターのように振る舞う彼女がエアマイクを義兄に向けた。義兄はしかめっ面をしながらも、いやー、生きた化石を発見したような気持ちです。嫁いびりの貴重な資料として早速学会で発表したく思います。と、ノリノリだ。化石？姑の細い眉がピクリと動く。そこで義兄はおどけた対応を中断し、俺の実家なんだから俺が動くのは当然だろ。嫁を使うなんておかしいし古いんだよ。古い？またもや古いを連発された姑はかなりショックだったようで口をつぐんでしまった。私と姑だけの時とは全く違う雰囲気に空気のような義父と夫でさえポカンとしっぱなし。義兄夫婦だけが楽しそうにおせちや刺身をつまんでいる。そんな姿を見ているうちに私の頭の中にはいつもと違う思いが生まれ始めていた。 嵐のような昼食の片付けも終わったので、私たちの寝る場所として用意された客間の和室で少しくつろいだ。すると、私が一人になるのを待っていたように、姑が眉間にシワを寄せて襖を開けた。ほら、気なすった。そういえば、はるみさん、子供の方はどうなの？このセリフはいつものお約束だ。それでも、一人で休憩中の私を狙ったのは、義兄嫁を避けたかったのだろう。その姿がなんだか滑稽に思えて、いつもより鬱陶しさは和らいだ。まだです。一体いつになったらできるのよ。病院には行ったの？行きました。お医者さんは私には問題がないって。じゃあ何？息子に問題があるとでも？そういうわけじゃ。いつもならここで黙り込むのだが、今日の私は違う。大輔さんにも検査を受けてもらいたいと思います。ずっと言えなかった言葉を姑にぶつけた。従順だった嫁のいきなりの反撃に、ぴたりと姑の動きが止まる。そして、まあ！鬼のような姑の顔が真っ赤に染まった。愚かな嫁ね。息子に問題なんかあるわけないでしょ？いい？妊娠するのは嫁なんだから、嫁の体に問題がなければ子供なんて簡単にできるはずよ。はあ。自分の不出来を夫のせいにするなんて最低すぎるわ。はあ？昔から3年こなしはされって言うでしょ？嫁としての務めを果たせない馬詰めは価値がないのよ。またいただきました。馬詰め。突然、姑の背後から義兄嫁がひょっこり現れた。ギャッ！驚きすぎた姑は、カエルが潰れたような悲鳴を上げる。もちろん私もびっくりしたけれど、それよりも彼女が来てくれたことが嬉しかった。彼女はふざけてるけど、ずっと私をかばってくれている。義実家のおかしな常識に蝕まれ、鈍感になっていた私にもそれがわかる。私にずっと訴え続けてくれていること。嫁だからって今夏のルールに従う必要はない。それも常識的なルールじゃないのだからなおさら。おかしいと思ったことはおかしいと言っていいんだって。私も彼女の気持ちに応えたい。何よりこんな牢獄のような義実家から解放されたい。いやー、リアルで馬詰めなんて言葉初めて聞きましたよ。はるみさん、この難しい単語を知っていましたか？またもや実況アナのように彼女が私にエアマイクを向ける。いえ、お母さんに初めて言われた時はスマホで検索しました。石女って書くんですね。びっくりしましたよ。妊娠しない女は石なんですね。血が通わないんですね。ですよね。さすがお母さん。生きた化石。重要文化財。紫綬褒章。心臓はバクバクするけれど、頑張って彼女の話に乗っかる。私の態度が変わったことに気づいた彼女がにやりと笑った。お母さんはお手本のように嫌な姑ですね。すごい。嫁いびり日本一。ああ、うるさい。散々古いと貶められ、嫁いびりをシャットアウトされた姑がとうとう大爆発した。その声を聞きつけて、義兄と夫が駆けつける。陽介！なんなのよこの非常識な女は！ギャンギャン文句を言う姑を無視し、義兄は迷うことなく彼女の味方についた。常識がないのは母さんの方だろ？人様の娘をこき使って見下して、最低だよ。私だって苦労してきたんだよ。今度は私の番だ。ばあちゃんは俺が小さい頃に死んじゃっただろ。一体何年苦労したって言うんだ。母さんのその性格の悪さと時代錯誤の考えは、おばあちゃんではなく自分自身で作り上げたものだよ。あんた、陽介がそんなひどいことを言うなんて。さては、この女の影響かい？こんの疫病神め！陽介と別れてさっさと出て行け！違うよ。俺は昔からヒステリックで自己愛が強すぎる母さんが苦手だった。 嫁さんがいじめられるのが分かってたから結婚もしたくなかったんだ。でも光が、それでもいいって言ってくれたんだ。別れるんなら光じゃなくて母さんの方だ。物静かだと思っていた義兄が、視力を尽くして自分の妻をかばっている。その姿になぜか涙がこみ上げてきた。姑は息子に反抗されると思っていなかったのか、言葉が続かないようだ。お望み通り光は出ていくよ。俺と一緒にね。この嫁いびりワンダーランドには二度と来ないから。なんで陽介まで出ていくの？あなたはここにいなさい。私の息子でしょ？もう違う。さようなら、母さん。陽介！来た時のままの荷物を拾い上げ、義兄夫婦が玄関に向かう。そして、義兄の嫁が振り返って私に手を差し伸べてくれた。お姉さん、一緒に帰りませんか？にっこり微笑む彼女に手を引かれるまま、私も静かにうなずく。ありがとう。そうするわ。おい、はるみ！ずっと空気だった夫がやっと慌て出したけれど何も気にしない。私は貴重品だけ持って義兄夫婦と一緒に家を飛び出した。私は義兄夫婦の行為で彼らの車に乗せてもらった。お姉さんごめんなさい。見苦しいテンションで絡んじゃって、ドン引きですよね。後部座席に並んで座った彼女が私に頭を下げてくる。そんなことないよ。ひかりさんとお兄さんのおかげで目が覚めたし、すっきりしたわ。よかった。たどたどしくフォローをする私に、彼女は安心したように笑った。その姿に先ほどまでのエキサイティングな雰囲気は一切なく、とても穏やかな女性に感じた。おそらくこちらが本当の姿なのだろう。彼女も精一杯戦ったのだ。今まで助けられなくてすみません。ずっと気になっていたんですけど、弟夫婦のことに口を挟んでいいのか悩んでいて。運転席の義兄までバックミラー越しに謝ってくれた。お兄さんのせいじゃありません。私は慌てて否定した。俺も弟も父さんも昔から母の性格には苦労してて、だから受け流すことに慣れてしまっているんだと思います。嫁さんができた途端そちらに矛先が向いたから弟は楽になったんじゃないかな。まあ、嫁をかばわないなんて最低ですけど。義兄は苦虫を噛みつぶしたような顔をしていた。そして義兄嫁が言葉を継いだ。だから陽介さんは結婚するつもりがなかったんです。でも私の方はどうしても結婚したくて、それでお母さんから出禁を食らおうって一芝居打ったんです。もちろんお母さんが普通に接してくれたら何もしない予定だったんですけど。お兄さん、ひかりさん。二人は本当にお互いを思いやっている。これが本当の夫婦なのだろう。私の頭の中の霞がすっと晴れた気がした。私、二人のおかげで本当の敵が誰か分かった気がします。はるみさん。義兄が安心したような、寂しそうな顔で微笑む。じゃあ、お姉さんには後で録音データをあげますね。今回だけじゃなく、これまでの嫁いびりの様子も彼がこっそり撮ってくれているんです。いつか必要になったら渡そうと思って、不要になるのが一番だったんですけどね。ひかりさん、陽介さん。私たちは二度とあの底なし沼みたいな家には行かないですけど、困った時にはいつでも頼ってください。私はあなたの味方です。彼女が握り拳を作って応援ポーズをとってくれる。二人の存在が私の心を強くしてくれた。義兄夫婦に家まで送ってもらい、部屋を片付けながら夫の帰りを待つ。しかし、夫の帰宅は次の日の昼過ぎだった。夫は私が家にいるのを確認すると、ほっと安堵の表情を見せた。ただいま。昨日あの後散々だったよ。母さんがカンカンに怒ってさ。そう。あ、お前のことはフォローしておいたから。兄貴の嫁のテンションに動揺して帰っただけだって。今度会った時はちゃんと母さんたちに謝るんだぞ。 私の冷めた態度に気づくことなく、夫はベラベラ喋り続ける。兄貴の嫁、ひかりちゃんだっけ？兄貴もやばい女を嫁にしたよな。頭おかしいんじゃないのか？俺はお前を選んでよかったよ。嫁は年齢じゃないよな。はははは。私の方はあなたを選んで大失敗だったわ。え？一瞬何を言われたのかわからなかったのか、こちらを振り向いた夫の目が点になっている。そして能面のような私の顔を見て、やっと異変に気づいたようだ。お兄さんたちを見て、あなたが心を入れ替えてくれたら許そうと思った。でも結局、あなたはお母さんと同類ね。残念だわ。なんでだよ。今までうまくやってたじゃないか。私だけ我慢してたからね。あなたは私を立て？いや、生贄にして、あの母親のヒステリーから逃げていたのね。あなたは空気みたいなお父さんがしてきたことを忠実に受け継いでいるのよ。生贄って、そんなつもりは。暖房が効いていない寒い部屋で、夫が大量に汗を流し始めた。図星を疲れ焦っているのだろうけど、情けなさすぎる。いつも私をフォローをしてくれるから味方だと勘違いしてたわ。でもお兄さんの姿を見て分かったの。本当に私を大切にしてくれるなら、あんな辛い場所に連れて行かないだろうし、行ったとしても自分が盾になってくれるはずだって。それは。お母さんの嫁いびりが辛いと思っていたけれど、ようやく分かったの。私の最大の敵はあなただわ。お兄さんと彼女のおかげでようやく気づいた。はるみ？別れましょう。お母さんも馬詰めはされって言ってたし。ちょうどいいわ。ネットで離婚届をダウンロードしたから今プリントします。はいこれ。さようなら。まとめた荷物を持って玄関で靴を履く。あなたが今まで帰ってこなかったから、かさばる荷物は宅配便で出してしまったわ。待ってって、はるみー！情けなくすがりつく声に振り向く気もない。私は何のためらいも心残りもなく、住み慣れた家を出た。正月が明けてすぐ、私は弁護士に相談に行った。正直、あの家には二度と行きたくなかったので、離婚訴訟に強い弁護士に全て任せることにしたのだ。内弁慶で権力に弱い義両親と夫は、代理人の弁護士の登場にたじろいだ。義兄夫婦が集めてくれた録音の証拠のおかげで、離婚交渉は比較的スムーズに進んだ。姑は、あんな女より優秀で子供をたくさん産む嫁を用意してあげる。と捨て台詞を吐いていたらしいけれど。嫁は今夏の便利な道具としか思ってないんでしょうね、と弁護士さんが苦笑いしながら私をねぎらってくれた。それから5年後。
なつちゃん、ご飯ができましたよ。スプーンで食べてくださいね。
かほちゃんはとても優しくて素敵な女の子ね。なつちゃんが可愛くて仕方がないみたいなの。近所の児童館でままごと遊びをする子供たちを眺めながら、私と元の義兄の嫁のひかりさんは穏やかな時を過ごしている。離婚して3年後、私は再婚した。もうすぐ1歳になる娘、夏も生まれた。馬詰めでないことが証明できたというものだ。今の夫も義実家もいい人たち。というか、普通の常識を持った家庭人。孫はもちろん、嫁である私のことも可愛がってくれる。元夫との離婚騒動の時、ひかりさんたちは宣言通り、たくさん手を貸してくれた。離婚成立後も交流は続き、今では戦友のような、ママ友のような、姉妹のような関係を築いている。ひかりさんにも3歳の娘、かほちゃんがいて、私の娘とよく遊んでくれる優しい子だ。元夫とは別の人との子だから血のつながりはないけれど、子供たち2人は本当のいとこのようだ。一方、元夫も一度再婚したようだけれど、またすぐに離婚したらしい。姑も夫も自分たちの悪い点を認めず、改心できなかったのだろう。 短い間に二人の嫁に出て行かれた上、義兄夫婦も寄りつかない義実家は、鬼姑の住処と囁かれ、女性が寄りつかなくなったらしい。慌てた夫が私に復縁を迫ったり、姑が義兄夫婦に孫を連れて同居しろとか、寝ぼけたことを要求して跳ねのけられたりしている。もちろん、私たちが鬼姑の住処に戻るわけなんてないけどね。自分たちの過ちを認めないあの人たちは、そこで寂しく朽ちていくのだろう。
はるみさん、なつちゃんが歩けるようになったら公園に行かない？芝生がふかふかで気持ちがいい場所があるの。
いいね。楽しみだわ。ひかりさんと顔を見合わせて笑う。彼女と出会うきっかけをくれたことだけは元夫に感謝だ。あのまま元夫の生贄になっていたら手に入れることのできなかった穏やかで優しい時間。あの時、ひかりさんが差し出してくれた手の温かさを思い出し、新しい世界に走り出してよかったと心の底から感じている。
お兄さん、浮気してるんじゃないですか？にやっと笑う義理の妹を見て、すべて合点がいった気がした。そうか、夫の浮気相手は。しかしこの後、思いもよらない展開が待っていたのだった。私の名前はまゆこ。生まれも育ちも都会っ子だが、年々田舎のスローライフというものに憧れが強くなっている45歳だ。老後は田舎暮らしもいいな。畑とかやったりして。そんな私が唯一行った田舎といえば、義理の実家くらいだ。結婚してからずっと、盆と正月、余裕があればゴールデンウィークも帰省している。田舎は遠いけれど、義理の両親は優しく、顔を見に行くのが楽しみだった。しかし、そんな帰省が苦痛になった時期がある。それは、夫の和樹と結婚して5年目。私が30代の頃だった。いつも通りお盆に帰省し、夫の実家の面々と食卓を囲んでいた時のことだ。同じく帰省中の義理の弟の妻、ゆまがこう言った。そういえば、お兄さんたちにお子さんのご予定ないんですか？その言葉に私は凍りついた。私と夫、和樹の間には、未だ子供を授かる気配がなかった。夫の弟の敦とゆまは同い年で、大学の頃から交際を続け、妊娠を機に学生結婚している。二人が幼馴染だったこともあり、両家ともに学生結婚でもいいだろうと後押ししたそうだ。この時すでに子供は3人生まれており、ゆまのお腹にはもう一つ新しい命が宿ったばかりだった。子供はいいですよ。多ければ多いほど。兄弟なんて可愛いですしね。そうね。何と返していいかわからず、私はニコッと笑うしかできない。気にしすぎと言われればそれまでなのだが、この頃の私は授からないことに悩んでいた。弟のところは先に結婚しているんだから授かってて当たり前だと思っていたけれど、今思うと当たり前ではない。現に何年経っても自分は授かっていないのだから。ユマには悪気がないのかもしれないが、このやりとりは結婚直後からずっとあった。前に聞いたことを忘れているのだろうか、と思うほどに。義理の母は私の気持ちに気づいているのか、しれっと会話を変えてくれていた。今まではユマもその流れに乗っていたのだが、この年は何かが違った。それは、ユマと台所で一緒になった時のことだ。もしかして、お姉さんって子供が嫌いなんですか？どうして？ユマの問いかけにぎょっとする。ユマの子供たちだって可愛がっているつもりなのだが、何かいけなかったのだろうか。子供がお好きなら、できているのが当然じゃないかなって。ほら、子供は授かり物って言うじゃないですか。あれはお空からママを選んでるんですよ。このママのところで生まれたいって。未だに授からないってことは、 お姉さんって子供が嫌いなのかなって。そんなことは、お空とか意味のわからないことを言われた程度でと思われそうだが、本当にショックだった。確かにそういう話はよく言われているし、その理論で行くなら、私のところに生まれたい子供なんていないということになる。非現実的な話だ。頭ではわかっている。でも、この時の私の心にはトゲのように刺さって抜けなかった。どうして授からないの？恥ずかしさを我慢して夫と受けた検査にだって異常はない。じゃあどうして？ユマに返す言葉が出てこなかった。なんだ、子供は好きなんですね。でもお姉さんはもう30を超えてますし、のんびりしてると産めなくなっちゃいますよ。早く、この子にいとこを作ってくださいね。笑顔で自分のお腹をさすってみせるユマ。心なしか笑顔の口元が嫌味っぽく歪んで見えた。この頃よくネットで不妊者に対する妊娠マウントなるものを見ていた。ユマの言動はそれに当てはまる。けれど、悪気はないと思いたかった。そうしないと自分がマウントを取られる側として惨めに思えてくるからだ。その年の冬、年末ということで、私と夫は再び夫の実家に帰省した。実家の近くに住んでいる夫の弟と少しお腹の目立ってきたユマもすでに集まっていた。正直、前回のお盆からユマと顔を合わせるのを億劫に感じている自分もいるが、前回のことは水に流してこの帰省を楽しもう。切り替え、と思っていたのだが、お姉さん、その後子供はどうですか？二人っきりになるたび言われるこの言葉に、またかと思った。だけど、きっと私が卑屈に捉えすぎている部分もあるのだろう。できるだけ深読みはせず、明るい対応に努めようと心がけた。なかなかね、頑張ってはいるんだけど。治療とかはしないんですか？考えないわけじゃないんだけど、体に問題があるわけじゃないし、授かるとは限らないのにお金が結構かかるからな。体に問題があるわけじゃないって、お姉さん30過ぎてるんですよ。その年まですることしてるのに子供ができないとか異常ですよ。ぐさっと太めの杭で心を刺されたようだった。年取って出産すると子供も脳とかに病気持ってる可能性あるって知らないんですか？そんな子がもし生まれたらかわいそうですよ。まあ、子供のいない人に子供がかわいそうなんて言っても想像できないと思いますが。ママになるって本当にいいことですよ。人間としても立派になれるし。でも、産めないなら早くお兄さんとは別れてあげないと、かわいそうですよ。私が黙っているせいか、矢継ぎ早に妊婦論を展開するユマの言葉が辛すぎて、思わず私は、ごめん、お腹痛くなっちゃった。と嘘をついてその場を去った。トイレでこっそり泣いて赤くなった目が夫や家族にバレないかと心配だったが、幸い誰も気づいていない様子だった。ユマでさえヘラヘラ笑って、お腹大丈夫でした？などと言ってくるほどだ。憎たらしい。授からないことで悩んでいることは、夫にもできるだけ言わないようにしている。できなくて困っている、なんて自分だって言われたくない。どうしていいかわからないからだ。何より、その悩みを口に出すことが辛かった。その夜、皆が寝静まった後で喉が渇き、1階のリビングまで降りると明かりがついていた。誰か起きてるのかなと覗くと、何やらユマがテーブルで携帯をいじってるではないか。水を飲んでいる形跡もなく、一人で過ごしているその姿に少しだけ違和感を覚える。ユマは、眠くなっちゃったおやすみなさいと誰より早く寝室に行っていた。もし眠れなくて携帯をいじるのだとしても、自分の旦那と一緒の部屋でもいいだろうに、なぜわざわざ居間に降りてくるのだろう。この間、浮気者のドラマなんて見てしまったせいか、実は旦那に隠れてこそこそ浮気してるんじゃ。なんて、すぐ悪い想像をしてしまう。 いかんいかん。その瞬間、ユマが携帯を置いてトイレに向かった。私は思わずユマから隠れてしまい、気分がすっかり浮気の目撃者だ。そんなわけはないのに。自分の想像力に辟易しながら、本来の目的である水を飲もうと、居間に足を踏み入れ、ユマのいたテーブルの前を通ったその時、ユマの携帯の外側にある小さな窓に、受信メール1件、和樹と表示された。ちょうど今受信したらしく、それが先ほどまでユマがメールのやり取りをしていた相手であろうことは明白だ。和樹？自分の脳裏に浮かんだ和樹は夫だけだった。二人は幼馴染。でも、まさかね。もやもやしながら水を飲み干して寝室に戻ると、夫も起きていた。私の物音で起きたと言っていたが、本当だろうか。その日は結局眠れず、翌朝、私たちは自宅へと戻った。自宅に戻ってみても、夫に浮気をしている風はないが、私の中の疑念はなかなか晴れてくれなかった。さらに翌年の2月、再び姑の還暦祝いだからということで、お祝いを兼ねて義実家に帰省することとなった。この時は今までで一番緊張していたと思う。夫がユマと浮気しているのかどうか、絶対にこの帰省で見極めようと思っていたからだ。何があっても強い気持ちで乗り越える。そう思っていた矢先。お姉さん、その後妊活はどうですか？また来たよ、とげんなりしたのは言うまでもない。うすうす気づいていたが、ユマは私と二人きりになるのをいつも狙っているようだった。私が台所にいたり、義母の家事を手伝って風呂を洗ったりしていると手伝うふりをして二人きりになるのだ。考えすぎだと思うようにしていたけれど、やっぱりこれが妊娠マウントなのだろう。相変わらずよ。でもいいの、自然に任せるから。ニコッと私が微笑むと、一瞬ユマは口元をニヤッと緩ませた。まだなんですか？だってもう頑張ってきて何年目です？やばくないですか？そろそろいい報告聞けるかと思ってました。もしかして夜の回数が少ないんじゃないですか？普通は普通にしててもできるでしょ？不妊女なんて呆れてお兄さん浮気しちゃってるかもしれませんよ。ちょうど夫とユマを疑っていた私にとって、ユマから浮気しちゃってるかもなんて言われるのはあまりにもタイミングの良すぎる嫌味だ。心の中に湧いた夫への疑念が徐々に膨らんでいく。夫がそんなことをするはずがないと信じたいのに、強気で対応しようと思っていたはずなのに、自然と涙がこみ上げてきた。泣くな。我慢だ。必死に服の裾を血が出そうなほど握りしめてこらえていた。その時だった。
本性が分かった。あんたは出て行け。
そう言ってユマの手首を掴んだのは私の夫だった。夫の両親もやってきて、
聞くに耐えないわね。出て行って。
とユマに告げる。え？私は目の前の様子に何が起きているのかよくわからなかった。
全部聞いていたよ。うちの奥さんに言いたい放題言ってくれるじゃん、ユマちゃん。
夫は口調こそ優しいが、その表情は怒りをあらわにしていた。彼の両親も厳しい目でユマを睨み、その後ろに弟もいたということに、私はようやくこの時気づいた。なんで私が出て行かなきゃいけないんですか？この家の血を引く子供を産んでいるのは私ですよ。私が出て行ったら、お母さんたちは孫に会えないんですよ。いいんですか？強気なユマに義父がこう言った。
その子らも、アツシの子かどうかわからんからな。
ユマはこの言葉にわかりやすく狼狽した。どういう意味ですか？
お前さん、アツシを裏切って浮気しとるんじゃろ。
義父の言葉に、何の証拠があってそんなこと言ってるんですか？と、ユマは負けじと反論した。すると夫がため息をついてこう言った。
浮気してるだろ。もう調べはついてるぞ。
ん？夫がそのセリフを言う？直前まで、 やっぱりゆまちゃんの相手は夫なのと思いかけていた私はあっけに取られた。思わず、あなたがゆまちゃんの浮気相手じゃなかったのと夫に問いかける。私の言葉に、はぁ、なんでそうなると、夫は本気で驚き、目を見開いていた。俺ずっとお前一筋だよ。俺が靴下洗うとき、何度言われても裏返したまま入れてたから、愛情薄いとか思っちゃった？困惑の色を隠しきれない夫を見ながら、義理の両親は、なんでそんな話になってるんだいと大笑いした。だって、この間うっかりゆまちゃんの携帯を覗いたとき、和樹って人からメールが来てて、あなたの名前しか浮かばなくて、あなたもちょうどその時起きてたし。半べそで話す私に、夫は、同じ名前かよ。と頭を抱え、夫の両親は、この子はまゆこさんにぞっこんだからないない。とゲラゲラ笑った。俺じゃないよ。まゆこ以外の女性とそういうことになることは一生ないから信じてくれよ。そう言って、心配させたなと、夫は私の頭をポンポンと撫でてくれた。夫がユマと浮気をしているかも、というのは私の誤解だったようだ。もちろん、ずっと証拠がなかったこともあり、完全に疑っていたわけではない。だけど、真実がわからず疑心暗鬼になっていたのでほっとした。私の誤解を解くためにも、と言って、夫の弟が詳細を話してくれたのだが、事の発端はユマのお腹の子がきっかけだったらしい。最初は自分のこと信じて疑わなかった彼だったが、なぜかユマがなかなかエコー写真を見せてくれないことで違和感を覚えたそうだ。そして年末の帰省の少し前、彼は自宅の中を漁った結果、エコー写真を見つけた。どうやらお腹の子は自分が出張していた時期に授かっていたことが判明し、浮気だと確信したという。すぐ離婚することも考えたが、相手の男を何としても突き止めたいとの思いから、夫や両親に協力してもらって、ユマの動向を監視していたようだ。しかし、肝心の男が誰かわからず、出産も近づくばかり。出産前に答えを出したかった彼は、男を特定することを諦めて、実家や夫を巻き込んでユマを問い詰め、無理やりにでも真実を吐かせようと考えていたそうだ。その矢先、私が妊娠マウントを取られていたので、思わず全員がこのタイミングで出てきてしまった、と教えてくれた。もっとスマートにユマを追い詰めるはずが、計画グダグダだよ。でもこんなことなら、お姉さんにも浮気のこと相談すればよかったな。と、義理の弟は笑っていたが、家族の面々がユマの暴言から私を助けてくれようと思ってくれたことがとても嬉しかった。そんな中、夫が、まさかマユコが名前を知ってたとは、でかしたな。なるほど、カズキね。それって誰なの？ユマちゃん。とユマを睨む。夫の両親と弟も同じだった。しかしユマは、私は浮気なんてしてないし、この子はアツシの子と声を荒げるだけだった。カズキって名前、旦那の他に誰かいたっけと私も記憶を探ってみたとき、一人の顔がポンと頭の中に浮かんだ。ああ、もしかしてカズキさんってあなたのお友達に一人いたじゃん。結婚式にも来てくれた高校の友達だっていうカズキさん。え？驚いて言葉を失うユマ。そしてユマ以外の全員は思い出したように、ああ！と声を上げた。カズキさんならあなた、ここに呼べるんじゃない？今もこの辺りに住んでるって言ってたでしょ？私の言葉にユマはぐいっと手を引っ張ってきた。やめて！呼ばないで！顔は青ざめ、少し手も震えている。ユマちゃん、そんなに嫌がるってことは、浮気相手はその人ってことね。それは、口ごもるユマに、ちゃんと答えないと、カズキに電話するぞ。という夫。全員が許さない空気を醸し出していたせいか、ユマは観念したように、そうです、 と力なく白状した。ユマは私と夫の結婚式で和樹と出会ったという。夫の友人なのでもともと顔見知りではあったらしい。それから自分の夫へのマンネリ感からやや冷め気味だったユマは、家庭の愚痴を和樹に話すことでストレスを発散していた。まあ要するに最初の二人の関係はただの愚痴聞きの相手だったのだ。しかし実のところユマは以前から和樹に好意を抱いていたようだ。大人になった和樹の雰囲気に一目惚れしたのだという。時折アピールしていたものの、自分が既婚者であるせいか、はたまた気づかれていないのか、最初は全く相手にされていなかったそうだ。そのため、互いの連絡の頻度も少なく、自分の夫には気づかれないまま友人関係が続いていた。ところが、夫の出張中、初めて二人で酒を飲みに行ってから関係が変わってしまった。子供もその時に授かったという。また、私へのしつこすぎる妊娠マウントの原因も判明した。どうやら、結婚式の少し後に、和樹が不意にユマに対し、
ユマちゃんの義理のお姉さんって美人だよな。
と言ってしまったらしい。和樹にとってはただの軽口だっただろう。友人の妻とどうこうなんて考えてなかったはずである。しかし、彼に対し好意を抱いていたユマにとって、この言葉はとても屈辱的だった。最初は私と夫の間に子供でもできれば、和樹も私のことを綺麗な女性ではなく、立派なおばちゃんとでも思ってくれるだろうと考えていたらしい。だから、私と夫の間に子供ができることを願って、子供はまだかと私に聞いていたそうだ。言われてみれば、最初は本当に軽いお子さんのご予定は程度の催促だったことを思い出した。しかし、私たちの間に一向に子供ができず、子供を産んだ自分と違って、見た目も体型もあまり変わらないままの私に対し、徐々に女として嫉妬を覚えたのだと語った。お姉さんが綺麗なままなら、どこかで和樹と出会って、和樹がお姉さんに惚れてしまうかもしれない。あんな女としても生物としても私に劣っている不妊女の何がいいんだ。私なら彼の子も産める。とまあ、どこをどうとっても八つ当たりだ。いい迷惑です。私からすれば結婚しているし、夫が好きだから、和樹さんと同行なんてことは絶対にありえないのだが、結婚していても他の人を好きになってしまったユマにとってはあり得ることだったのだろ
う。なんで、和樹さんが好きなのに、俺と結婚生活を続けたわけ？
と、強めの語気でユマを問いただす義弟。最初はちゃんとあんたが好きだった。でも、気持ちって止められないじゃん。仕方なかったんだよ。ユマの言い分は一見恋する乙女そのものだが、全く答えになっていない。そういうのってあるよね、とユマの気持ちを理解する者は誰もいなかった。ユマは開き直り、いいでしょ？ちゃんと別れるし、子供もちゃんと育てるから。とのたまう。そういう問題じゃない。浮気するときに、アツシ君のこととか子供たちの気持ち考えなかったの？子供を3人も産んでるのに、子供どころか人の気持ち自体がわからないの？先ほど私に、子供を産んでないから子供の気持ちがわからないと言い放ったユマは、これが私なりの意趣返しと気づいたようで、顔を真っ赤にして怒り出した。なんなの？子供も産んでないくせに、お姉さんはお兄さんにもお母さんたちにも大事にされてさ、意味わかんない。私はこの家の跡取りになれる子も産んでるのに、なんで私が追い出される側なの？こうなったのは私のせいじゃない。環境とあんたたちが悪い。泣きながらぶっ飛び持論を展開するユマに、夫の弟は頭を抱え、両親は嫌悪感をあらわにし、夫はため息を吐いた。確かに、恋愛感情はコントロールできないかもしれないね。でも、二と追うものは一とも得ずだよ。どちらも好きは、どちらもどうでもいいってことと同じだよ。淡々と話す私に、義理の母は、本当にそうね。と、隣にすり寄ってくれた。ごめんね、まゆこさん。あなたが今からあんな風に妊娠のことを言われてるなんて、あまり気づいてなくて、 ここに入ってくるときにユマの言葉を聞いて、女としてゾッとしたわ。気づいてなくても無理はないだろう。授かったことのない人間の痛みは、その経験がないと分かりにくいものだ。ましてや義母たちの前で言っていたのは、お子さんの予定はとかだし。下手すれば職場でも聞かれるような話題だ。気にしなければ気にならない。だけど、義母のわからないなりに痛みに寄り添おうとしてくれる姿勢は心に染みた。本当に温かい人だ。
自分が悪くないって言うなら、とにかく子供たち全員の DNA 鑑定を出してくれ。出せないなら離婚だし、出しても俺の子だけ引き取って離婚だ。
弟の厳しい言葉にユマは、そんなと声を上げるが、全員の冷たい目線にもう取り付く島はないと理解したのだろう。素直に、わかった。ごめんなさい。と言ってうなだれた。その後、念のために受けた DNA 検査の結果、ユマの言葉通り、お腹の子以外はすべて義理の弟の子だと分かったので、その子たちは彼が親権を持ち、ユマとは離婚した。浮気相手の和樹は最初、責任を取ろうとユマとの結婚の準備を進めていたものの、これを彼のご両親が大反対。一つの家庭と子供を苦しめて、お前たちだけ幸せになるのはいけない、と、土星論で二人の仲を引き裂き、結局ユマはシングルマザーとなった。ユマと和樹は慰謝料についても、一緒に力を合わせて払うから大丈夫と、義弟からの高額な慰謝料請求に快諾していたのだが、二人が別れたことで、ユマは同棲していた家にも住めなくなり、高額な慰謝料と養育費、そして血のみ子を抱えて路頭に迷うこととなった。ちなみにユマは実家からも、恥知らずの娘は帰ってくるなと感動されている。あの日、ユマに二と追う者は一とも得ずと話したが、本当にその通りになってしまったようだった。そんな中、義理の弟は義実家で暮らすようになり、三人の子供を両親と一緒にてんやわんやしつつも、元気いっぱいに育てている。困った時はいつでも助けるつもりだ。一方、私たちはというと、38歳の時、もうダメだと思っていたけれど、奇跡的に子供を授かり、女の子を出産した。年齢的にも体力的にも、私と夫にとって最初で最後の子供だと思う。妊娠が分かった時は、私のところに生まれたい子、なのだと感じて嬉しかった。ユマに言われた心の傷が、その時まで残っていたことを理解すると同時に、すっと消えた瞬間だった。私も娘も、実は人見知りなので、公演デビューやお友達とのご近所付き合いには苦労したが、全部楽しくて仕方なかった。大変なことでも、子供のためなら頑張れるんだな、母親って。夫もあの日、二度と浮気を疑われないように、今まで以上に大事にする、と宣言されてからは、文字通り私にベタ甘状態になっている。なんと、この年で週末は必ずデートしているのだ。あ、今は子供がいるからデートって呼べないのかもしれないけど。家族の時間も二人の時間も作ってくれる優しい夫なので、悩み一つなく暮らすことができている。私は本当に幸せ者だ。こんな日々がこれからも続きますように。
愛人と再婚するから離婚してくんない？ヘラヘラした顔でそうの玉をうちのアンポンタン夫。あ、もう離婚するから夫じゃないのか。ええ、こんなおバカさんとはお望み通り離婚してあげますよ。え、俺はアンポンタンじゃないって？なんにも気づいてないのね。今に痛い目見るわよ。私の名前は香織。近頃の私には金曜日の夜、仕事が終わってお風呂に入った後にとっておきのお楽しみがある。それはコンビニの新作アイスをウイスキー片手に堪能することだ。物価高の時代だけど、数百円でちょっぴりリッチな気持ちになれるのは嬉しい。 そんなささやかな喜びを心から楽しめる59歳だ。だけど少し昔は、どんな楽しいことも楽しいと感じられないほど苦痛しか感じない修羅場の日々を送っていた。それは私が40代の頃のこと。結婚生活もそれなりに長くなり、子供には恵まれなかったが、夫と2人で穏やかに暮らしていた私のもとに、こんな連絡が入るようになった。
あ、もしもし、かおりさん？どうしよう、高明が帰ってこないのよ。
電話越しにも伝わる慌てた様子の義母。
家の周りを見ても車すらないの。もうこんな時間なのにどうしましょう。
少しだけ息を切らしている感じがしたのは、外を見回ってきたからだったようだ。時刻は夕方16時。まだ小学生が歩いているような時間帯だ。お母さん、高明さんはご結婚されてからずっと千葉にいるでしょ？お母さんのお家を出たのはもう20年も前でしたよね。
そうだったかしら。でも車が。
その車はお隣さんじゃないでしょうか。お母さんのお家は、お母さんは車に乗らないでしょ？そうだったわね。ごめんなさい。私どうかしちゃってたみたい。ダメね。いえ、いいんですよ。お母さん、今度私、お家に遊びに行っていいですか？
もちろんよ。沙織も喜ぶわ。
沙織とは義妹の名だ。彼女も義兄の高明同様、もう何十年も前に家を出ている。しかし私は、それには何も言わず、それならよかったですと答えた。義母は近頃、こんな風に過去と現在がごっちゃになって物を話すことがある。今日は義兄が帰ってこないと慌てていたが、先日はうちの夫が義母の財布を持って逃げたと焦って電話が来た。もちろん夫はそんなことをしていない。その時間は会社で会議中だった。義母自身も財布が見つからないということだけで夫が盗んだと考えたらしい。被害妄想というには少し違う。以前と比べておかしくなってしまった義母に何か病気が潜んでいることは明白だった。ねえあなた、この間も言ったけどお母さんがちょっとおかしいのよ。私の言葉に夫は少しめんどくさそうにため息をついてこう言った。まあ、年だしボケたんだろ。認知症かもしれないし、病院に連れて行ってあげた方がいいと思うの。いやいや、そこまですることじゃないって。ほら、メガネかけてるのに、メガネどこ行ったって探す人いるじゃん。あれと同じだよ。ちょっとした物忘れに病院なんていらないって。20年も前に就職して家を出たお兄さんが自分の家に帰ってこないって騒いだのよ。物忘れで片付けられる問題じゃないでしょ？まあ、それはほら、物忘れにも個人差があるだろうし。気になるならお前が母さんを病院に連れて行ってくれよ。そうしたいのは山々だけど、わかってるでしょ？私だって自分の親が入院して、県外まで病院通いしてるのよ。時間が取れないわ。偽善なら病院行けとか言うなよな。そうじゃないわよ。あなたにも協力してもらえたらと思って。俺を頼るなよ。俺だって仕事で忙しいのに。仕事なら私だってしてるわ。お前は女だから時短勤務が許されてるじゃん。俺とは違うよ。自分の親のことでしょ？少しは寄り添おうとか思わないの？思ってるけど時間がないんだって。もうこの話は終わり。疲れて帰ってきたのに喧嘩なんかしたくないよ。そう言って夫は私に背を向けた。喧嘩はしたくない。それは私だって同じ気持ちだが、私は喧嘩ではなく話し合いをしようとしただけなのだ。どうしてこんな風にまともな会話にならないのだろうか。夫が向き合ってくれないからじゃないのか。そんなことを思いながら、私は少しずつ夫への不満を募らせていた。私の親が倒れたのはもう1年も前のことだ。父はとうに他界し、一人となった母まで倒れ、私は県外にある母の病院まで着替えなどを届ける日々を送っていた。余命は告げられており、もう長くはない。仕事と病院通いの両立は辛いけれど、残りわずかな母との時間と思えば苦ではなかった。しかし、もしこれで義母も病院通いとなれば、母のそばにいられる時間は減るだろう。そんな背景も 夫には理解して欲しかったのだが、こんな風に私が心をもやもやさせている間にも、義母の症状は進行していった。スーパーで万引きをしたと連絡が入ったのだ。慌てて迎えに行くと、義母は盗んだこと自体を覚えていないようで、バックヤードで店員に厳しい目を向けられながらしくしくと泣いていた。優しい義母だ。物を盗むようなことをする人間を、人に迷惑をかけるんじゃないと一番嫌っている人だった。それなのに自分が、記憶はないとはいえ、そんなことをしてしまったのが悔しくてしょうがないのだろう。義母は何度も私や店員にごめんなさいと繰り返し、土下座までしてみせた。義母が認知症なのはきっと間違いない。店員からも病院に連れて行くべきではと厳しく言われた。当然だ。家族間で何とかできる問題と甘く見ていた私も悪かったと思う。認知症の症状というものを当時はさっぱり知らなかった。無知とは恐ろしいことである。この件を機に私はもう一度夫に義母を病院へ連れて行こうと直談判をした。ところが、認知症で通院っていうのが意味わかんないんだよな。別に命に関わるわけでもないのに。認知症が原因にはならないけど、合併症で亡くなることもあるわよ。そんな風に軽んじちゃダメ。合併症って、めったに出ないだろ、そんなの。結局のところ、年齢が理由でくたばる感じだろ。老衰みたいなもんじゃん。認知症になったからって焦る必要ないよ。なんでそんなにお母さんを病院に連れて行きたくないの？いや、そういうわけじゃないけど、通院とかになったら大変だしさ、お前が。お前がって、あなたは一切手伝うつもりがないってわけ？そんなことは言ってないじゃん。ただ、ほら、認知症って分かったところで、俺らにできることってないし、今のままうやむやにしておく方が絶対にいいって。そんなわけないでしょ？この夜、義母のことを全く取り合わない夫と、義母を通院させたい私は大喧嘩になった。ここまでの喧嘩をしたのは何年ぶりだろうか。少なくとも10年はしてなかっただろう。ただ親を病院に連れて行く。お世話を協力する。それだけの話がこんな大喧嘩になるなんて。夫と初めて価値観の違いを感じた夜だった。この日を境に夫とは会話も減り、そうこうしている間に私の母も他界。夫は仕事を理由に通夜には来ず、葬儀だけ参列してくれたが、終始めんどくさそうに、わざとらしくため息をついていた。葬儀が日曜日になり、休日が潰れたのが嫌だったようだ。通夜の日が仕事などと言いつつ、飲み会だったのは知っている。大方翌日はゆっくりしたかったのだろう。親を亡くした私を抱きしめて、優しい言葉をかけてほしい。なんて言わないけれど、もう少し夫婦として支え合う姿勢を見せてくれてもいいのに。穏やかに母を見送りたい気持ちはあるのに、夫へのイライラを募らせずにはいられなかった。そんな中、義妹が、
お姉さん、この度は、大変でしたね。
と声をかけてくれた。
そうね。
でも母は長い間闘病してたから、やっと楽になれたのかなって気持ちもあるよ。
そうですか。
向こうで父に会えてたらいいけど、なんてね。
きっと会えますよ。
夫とは違い、私に寄り添ってくれる義妹。少しばかりの穏やかな空気を感じていたら、夫がこんなことを言った。あ、これでお前も母さんを病院に連れて行けるんじゃないか？手が空いただろ？え？夫の言葉に私は思わず目を丸くした。何の話？いや、お前母さんを通院させたいとか言ってたじゃん。認知症かもしれないって。俺はよくわからないけどさ。確かに言ったけど、そっちのお母さんも他界したんだし、もう病院通いは終わりだろ？次は母さんを頼むわ。え？耳を疑うような夫の言葉に、義妹はぎょっとした顔をして尋ねた。
え？お姉さんに任せる気？
そうだよ。不都合あるか？
いや、ないけど。
義妹が私を、本当にいいの？とでも言いたげにちらりと見る。その様子から、義妹も義母が認知症になっている可能性を気づいていたようだと理解した。まあ、うちにあれだけ電話がかかってくるのだ。義妹のところにも同じように義母からの電話が来ていたのかもしれない。
母さんがちょっとおかしいのは気づいてて、私も兄さんに相談してたのよ。でも私たちは県外にいるから、母さんを面倒見るなら引っ越すしかなくて。そう話す義妹に夫は、
だからうちの嫁が全部面倒見れば解決だろ
と屈託のない笑顔を向けた。義妹は困ったような、夫を嫌悪するような顔で、でもさーっと言い、私を見る。
香りに悪いと思ってるのか？
そりゃそうでしょ。お姉さんだってお母さん亡くされたばっかで一人娘だからいろいろ大変だろうし。
もう後処理だけだろ？四十九日終われば暇だよ。
そういう問題じゃない。と私が思う気持ちを代弁するように、そんな言い方やめなよ。と義妹は言った。義妹の言葉に夫は罰が悪そうな顔で、はいはいと答える。申し訳なさはみじんもない。
まあでも、文句は言わないよな。お前が母さんを病院に連れて行きたいって言った言い出しっぺなんだし、時間がないって言ってた問題もこれで解決だろ？
そう言って、夫は私をじろっと見た。義妹も、お姉さん、いいの？と申し訳なさそうに尋ねてくる。しかし、義妹の本心としては、私が動く方がありがたいのは事実だろう。それは私に義母の世話を押し付けようとしているのではない。事実、住んでいる場所など、諸々の問題から、義妹が義母を面倒見るのは現実的ではないからだ。この場に来れなかった義兄は、義妹よりさらに遠くに住んでいる。義実家に一番近いのは、私と夫。流れ的に私が義母の世話を引き受けるのは致し方ないことだった。わかったわ。私はそう言って義母のことを引き受けた。おそらく病院に見せれば義母の様子から介護なり何なりは必須になるだろう。義母のことは実の親のように大切に思っているし、よくしてもらった。だから力になりたいと思う気持ちは嘘じゃない。だから自分がお世話を引き受けることは納得はしているのだが、夫に押し付けられた感じがありありとして不愉快だった。こうして私は葬儀後、諸々の手続きを済ませた後に、義母を病院に連れて行った。義母はやはり認知症らしく、パーキンソン症状を併発しているようで、久々に会うと、転んだのか生傷が増えていた。幻聴や幻視の症状もあり、日によって症状も変わるようだ。進行度合いもわかりにくいそうだが、中等度、要介護の段階だろうと医者に言われた。診断を裏付けるように、確かに義母は、久々に会った私の名前を、香織さんではなく、陽子さんと呼んだ。それが誰なのかはわからない。実在するのかも不明だ。他にも検査の中で、ハサミの使い方を忘れていたり、亡くなった義父の名前を思い出せないのに、出かけた場所は覚えている、ということもあった。医師からは、要介護認定を受けるように指導され、病院から戻った私は、早速このことを夫にも話したのだが、お母さんの様子を見た感じ、常にそばに人がいなきゃダメだと思うの。あの生傷の感じ、家の中で転んだ風じゃなかったわ。気づかなかっただけで徘徊もしてるんじゃないかってお医者様に言われたわ。
まあ大人だし、徘徊したところで大したことないよ。家に戻れてるんだし。
お母さん、お父さんの名前も覚えてなかったのよ。家の場所だって忘れるかもしれないわ。
それはその時考えたらいいじゃん。
それじゃ遅いでしょ？行方不明みたいになったらどうするの？
大げさだな。警察がいるだろ？
そうやって行方不明になったまま亡くなる方が年間何人もいるって今日言われたわ。
まあレアケースでしょ、そんなの。
甘く考えすぎよ。もっとちゃんと向き合って。自分の親でしょ？
じゃあなんだ？四六時中俺らがそばにいればいいのか？仕事もあるのに？無理だろ。お前だけ同居でもするか？
夫に檄を飛ばされて私は思わず黙った。しかし夫の言う通りだ。今の義母の世話をするなら誰かが常にそばにいなくてはいけない。そして、夫の発言を見る限り、夫の協力は愚か、ヘルパーなどを外注することも望めなさそうである。それどころか、義母にお金を出したくなさそうな気配さえあった。お金を出さず、嫁に世話をさせる。自分は手伝わない。こんなの、義母を押し付けられたも同然だ。 私がもし義母のことを嫌っていたら、離婚してこの場を逃げ出していたことだろう。だけど、こんな状況で義母を見捨てることもできない。私は仕方なくある決断をした。わかったわ。私が仕事を辞めて、あちらのお家に住み込んでお母さんのお世話をします。私がそう言うと夫は、
そうか。じゃあ頼んだぞ。
と満面の笑みを浮かべた。今の私の話は夫と別居する上に仕事も退職するということだったのだが、笑顔で聞くような内容ではなかろうに、と思いつつもイライラするので夫を見ないようにした。こうして義母は要介護認定を受け、私は一人で義母のお世話をすることになったのだが、当然かもしれないが、義母の症状が良くなることはなかった。最初は日によって調子のいい時もあったのだが、徐々にそんな日もなくなり、私が誰かも分かっていないようだった。見知らぬ女が家に上がり込んで好き勝手していると思い込み、叩かれたこともある。昔の人は子供に手を挙げて育てることも少なくなかったのに、夫たちですら叩かずに育てたという義母。そんな義母が私の髪を引っ張ったり、引っかいたりするのだ。病気のせいだと分かっていても信じられなくて、私の知っている義母がいなくなったようで悲しかった。夫は義母の元を訪れるのは愚か、様子を聞くことすらしない。義母と二人の生活は気づけば8年が経っていた。時々用事で夫のいる家に戻ると、夫は悠々自適に暮らしているようで、不自然なほど家の中は綺麗だった。そう、夫はよそに女を作っているのだ。夫しか暮らしていないはずの家の洗面台に女性もののピアスが転がっていたから間違いない。時折、この家にその女性を泊まり込ませているのだろう。使いかけの化粧水などもあった。私が義実家にいるからってやりたい放題だ。義母の介護を始めて8年近く。その間に夫は複数の女性と交際していた。実際に会ったことはないので、複数というのは私の見立てでしかないけれど、落とし物の趣味や髪の毛の長さなどがそれぞれ違うので、一人の女性と長続きしているわけではないのだと思う。人に親の介護をさせておいて自分は浮気。本当に最低な夫だ。初めて浮気に気づいたときは涙も出ないくらいにショックで、食事も喉を通らないほどだったけど、今はもう夫への思いも冷めた。私の使命は義母を守ることだ。お世話をしない実の息子の代わりに、私がこの優しい人を大切にしよう。そう思っていたのだけれど、介護を始めて10年目を迎えたある日、義母が肺炎で他界した。あっけなかったね。そう言ってうつむく義妹。しかし義兄は、長年頑張ってきたんだし、やっと楽になれたのかもしれないな、母さんも。と言った。そうだといいね。と義妹が答える。香織さんも今まで大変だったよな。ずっと俺たちの分まで母さんの世話をしてくれて本当にありがとう。義兄がペコリと頭を下げると、義妹も同じように私に頭を下げた。いいんです。お母さんは私にとって本当の母親も同然でしたから、そばにいられてよかったです。すすり泣く義妹にそっと寄り添いながら、私たちは義母の思い出話に花を咲かせていたのだが、
ごめん、この空気の中ですごい言いにくいんだけど、俺、ちょっと生活環境を変えようと思ってさ。
そう言って、何やらヘラヘラした様子で頭をかく夫。誰もが、生活環境？何の話？と、頭の上にクエスチョンマークを浮かべていた。
ほら、母さんが亡くなったってことは、香織も家に戻ってくるだろ？だから今言っておかないとなと思って。
私？
そう。お前の戻る家はもうないからさ。
え？
ごめん、言ってなかったけど俺、今恋人がいるんだ。
少し恥ずかしそうに、相変わらずヘラヘラしながらそう話す夫。一方で義兄と義妹は一瞬で表情を変えて嫌悪感をあらわにした。何言ってんのお兄ちゃん。それ本気？冗談だとしても笑えないけど。
俺だってこんなこと冗談で言わないよ。でも仕方ないだろ？何年も家に香織がいないから寂しくて浮気しちゃったんだよ。
お姉さんが家にいないから悪いみたいな言い方やめなよ。お姉さんは私たちの代わりに。声を荒げる義妹を義兄がそっと制した。家族葬とはいえ、葬儀の場だからだろう。しかし、義兄も苛立ちはあるようで、その目は夫を睨みつけていた。
まあ、意見はいろいろあると思うけど、俺はもうあの家で恋人と再婚して穏やかに暮らしたいと思ってるんだよ。母さんのことも落ち着いたし、もういいだろ？離婚してくれよ、香織、な。まるで、私が夫との離婚を渋り続けているような言い草やめてくれないだろうか。義兄と義妹は夫をたしなめようとしたが、今度は私がそれを制した。
お兄さん、沙織ちゃん、ありがとう。でも大丈夫。いいわ、離婚してあげます。私ももううんざりよ、こんな生活。私の言葉に、義兄と義妹は絶句し、夫は満面の笑みを浮かべ、やったーとガッツポーズをしてみせた。私との離婚をここまで喜ぶような夫なんて、こっちだって離婚を選んでよかっただわ。
つまりお互い満足いく結果ってことで。
ニコニコしながら携帯を取り出す夫。浮気相手に離婚の報告でもするんだろう。明らかに後ろ姿が浮き足立っていた。そんなに浮かれていられるのも今のうちよ。あっという間にあんたは地獄に落ちるんだから。夫は離婚届までしっかり用意していたようで、その日のうちに記入し、提出まで済ませてしまった。まさか義母の葬儀の日に離婚になるとは。やれやれ。勢いで離婚したものの、私の住む場所がない。そのため、私は一時的に義実家に住まわせてもらうことになったのだが、翌日、義母の遺影を眺めながらのんびりしていたら、突然夫がやってきた。もうインターホン連打しないでよ。何の用？怒り気味の私に夫が、
どういうことだ？
と大声を上げた。何がよ？
エリコのことだよ。お前の友達だったんだろ？本人から聞いたぞ。
今にも私の胸ぐらをつかまんばかりの勢いで肩を揺さぶってきた夫。やめてよ、と私はその手を払いのけた。今頃気づいたの？そうよ。あんたの今の愛人は私が前勤めていた職場の後輩よ。思わず口元がにやけた。そんな私を見て夫が激高する。
俺は今後の人生を楽しみにしてたのに、お前のせいで、なんでこんなことするんだよ。
私があなたの親の介護に必死になっている時に、あなたは家に何人も女を連れ込んでたでしょ？知ってるのよ、全部。証拠集めて訴えてやりたかったけど、私にはそんな暇もなかったし。一度女で痛い目見てもらいたいと思ってね。
お前は鬼だ。最低だ。
なんとでも言えばいいわ。第一、おかしいと思わなかったの？あの子、あなたにキスすらさせなかったでしょ？
それは、若い子だったし、家も厳しくて恋愛経験もほとんどないって言うからウブなのかなって。
いくら20代とはいえもう後半よ。あんな美人がそんなわけないでしょ。第一、そんな子なら既婚者と交際なんてしないわよ。
それは。
で、ここにわざわざ来たってことはあの子に振られたの？
お前が俺を振るように命じたんだろ？すっとぼけるな。口元ニヤニヤしてるの分かってるんだぞ。
その言い方はあんまりだわ。だって、あの子とは、私が離婚するまでの間、夫と付き合ってって契約だったんだもの。私の離婚が決まったから、好きでもないあなたからはさっさと離れたってことよ。命じたわけじゃないし、もしあの子があなたを好きなら一緒になってもいいとは言ったわよ。
なんでそんな契約を？
言ったでしょ？あなたに女で痛い目見て欲しかったし、浮気の証拠が欲しかったのよ。
エリコはお前のでっち上げなんだから浮気の証拠にならないだろ？
そんなの分かってるわ。でも、エリコの件をきっかけに、過去の浮気の話を引き合いに出して、あなたが口を滑らせるように仕掛けよう。慰謝料をもらって離婚しようって思ってたんだけど、あなたってば、愛人がいるから離婚しろなんて堂々と言うんだもの。想定外よ、こんなの。
じゃあなんだ？エリコは本当に俺のことなんか好きじゃなくて、俺たちの離婚が成立したから俺と縁を切ったってことなのか？
そういうことになるわね。どんまーい。笑いがこらえきれず、茶化すように私がそう言うと、夫は顔を真っ赤にして大声を出した。
俺だってあんな女本気じゃなかった。苦しい言い訳ね。本気じゃない女と再婚しようとしてたの？そうだ。遊んでやっただけだ。だいたいお前っていう嫁がいたのに、そう簡単に本気になれるわけないだろ？よく言うわよ。10年もいいように使った挙句にあっさり捨てたくせに。お前の心を試してたんだよ。お前もあっさり離婚を了承するからびっくりしたぞ。取ってつけたように、私のことを好きだったかのような発言を繰り返す夫。今更私に媚びを売って何になるのか、と思っていたら。お互い誤解し合ってたってことだな。そういうことなら俺たちやり直そう。は？お前も俺のことが好きだから、嫉妬して別の女を差し向けたりしたんだろ？俺もあの女は遊びだったわけだし。ほら、一件落着。離婚までしちゃったけど、俺たちやり直せるよな。何言ってんの？あなた、自分だけ割を食って一人になったから、私とやり直そうなんて安易な考えになってる？だって、これじゃあ俺がアホみたいじゃないか。再婚するはずの女に逃げられて、嫁も手放したみたいで。事実その通りじゃない。なんなら再婚するはずの女も、私のスパイみたいなものだったんだし、嫁の策略にはまったアホ男よ、あなたは。わかってるよ。それが嫌なんだよ。兄弟や会社の人間にどう思われるか。謝るから、頼む、俺とやり直してくれ。結婚生活だって、最後は身勝手なあなたに振り回されたのに、今また身勝手な理由であなたと再婚すると思う？私はあなたに離婚を言い渡されなくても、落ち着いたら離婚するつもりだったの。今は清々してるくらいなのに、なんでまた再婚しなきゃいけないのよ。お前だって一人で暮らすのは不安だろ？お母さんの介護が終わったばかりなのに、わざわざ再婚なんて奴隷契約結ばされて、こんなアホなおっさんの介護もしなきゃいけない方が不安よ。その言い草はないだろ。奴隷契約なんて。間違ってないじゃない。あなたと一緒にいたって私は幸せになれないわ。再婚なんて絶対にお断り。そんなに一人になりたくないなら人形でも抱いてろ。思わず口が悪くなってしまった。と少しばかり反省したが、夫には効果てきめんだったようで、完全に言葉を失ってしまっていた。反論する気力もないようで、その場に呆然と立ち尽くしている。めんどくさいからこのまま放置するか、と私はそのまま家に戻った。その後、夫がインターホン越しにいろいろ言っていたようだが、当然ながらすべて無視。こうして私と夫は書類上も心の上でも離婚、となったのだった。その後、夫は何度か再婚を要請してきたが、とことん無視して、離婚に関する諸々のやりとりが終わった後は絶縁した。何をしつこく再婚しろって言ってくるんだ、と思ったら。どうも、職場でいろいろと離婚に関する噂が広まったようで、奥さんを裏切ったつもりが、逆に奥さんの罠に引っかかったドアホ、と陰口を叩かれていたらしい。居心地が悪くなって転職したものの、年齢が年齢なので、職場の選択肢もあまりなく、現在はこの時代にサービス残業も当たり前という恐ろしいブラック環境で働いているようだ。朝も夜もなく会社から呼び出されて頭がおかしくなりそうだ、などと抜かしているらしいが、こっちは10年間朝も昼も晩もなく配偶者の優しい言葉もなくやってきたのだ。そのくらいなんだって言うんだ、この感情なしが。と言ってやりたいが、言うのもめんどくさい。まあもう関係ないし。寂しくなって兄弟を頼ったらしいが、義妹や義兄たちからも距離を置かれ、実質疎遠状態だと聞いている。当たり前だ。一方、私は夫から分取った慰謝料でコーヒーショップを開いた。もともと結婚当初はケーキ屋で勤めていたのだ。若い頃はパティシエをやっていたので、調理に関する資格も持っている。決して大きくはない。地方のささやかなお店ではあるが、常連のお客さんも増えてきて、みんなが家族みたいに仲のいい温かい空間だ。お店に勤めたことはあれど、お店を経営したことはなかったので不安だったが、意外となんとかなるものだ。何歳になっても挑戦する気持ちがあれば、どんなことでも成功できるのかもしれない。ちなみに最近は週末限定で子供食堂をやっている。子供に恵まれなかった私だけど、今ではここに来る子供たちみんなが子供。いや、孫みたいなものだ。自分の子供でなくても、
こんなに愛おしく思えるものなのだなぁと思う。この子たちが心も体も健やかなまま大人になってくれるといいな。そのお手伝いができることを幸せに思う今日この頃だ。